A pale dawn curled above the frosted towers of Winterfell, painting the skies in bruised violets that foretold another hard-edged northern day. Snowfall still clung to the broken crenellations repaired only the previous moon, yet inside the castle, the air tasted of newly forged iron and crisp anticipation. Ravens hawed restlessly on their perches, unsettled by the pulse that quickened behind every stone. Word had flown across the trident of the world that Jon Snow, once a bastard in borrowed black, had bent the knee neither to the Dragon Queen in exile nor to the Lion Queen upon the Iron Throne, but to an older call, the ancient blood and bare-cold earth of the north, and to a wedding pledge writ in ash and fire. Sansa Stark woke before the servants stirred, fingers brushing the raw stone sill beside her narrow window. Through that slit, she watched white breath coil from the stables and swirl upward like offerings to gods older than the Citadel's newest mortar. It had been moons since she last dreamed of King's Landing, but tonight the memory returned. A bedchamber smelling of rotted lilacs, whispered threats behind perfumed masks, Septa Mordaine's voice cut off too soon. She pressed those ghosts aside and inhaled Winterfell's unmistakable musk, pine, smoke, and prized independence. She would not allow the South to steal her breath again. Down in the yard, recruits sparred beneath Sir Davos' watchful eye. Their swords chimed against shields in the half-light, a ragged symphony that reminded Sansa of the deep nights on the King's Road, when hooves clattered through fog and all futures seemed possible. Today, possibility felt frightfully real. For the first time since her return she had dressed herself in weirwood white, and the gown's fur-lined sleeves whispered along her skin like the caress of a direwolf's tail. This was more than ceremony. It was armor. When she descended the stairwell to the great hall, she found Jon already awake before the fire, arms crossed over his jerkin. Shadows warred across his face. The hearth spat sparks as though to protest the tension stretched between them. "You did not sleep," she observed, voice soft enough that only he could hear. "Sleep will come after the realm is safe," he answered. His tone held neither jest nor bitterness, just the ironclad resolve that had carried him across the wall and back. "The realm will never be safe, Jon, only safer." She stepped closer, noting the frost in his hair where the melting snowflake glittered. "And for that, we must live as well as fight." His lips twitched, half smile, half grief. "And marry." Sansa summoned her courage. Yes. The previous evening, the lords of the north had gathered beneath Winterfell's painted rafters. Lord Glover, still ashamed of his late loyalty, spoke first. "We pledged to House Stark after Ramsay's defeat. Our word is iron, yet now you ask us to accept a marriage that—" He hesitated, as if the notion tasted sour. That wedding sibling to sibling might offend Southron tongues. It had fallen to Lady Lyanna Mormont to meet that withering gaze. Her small fist struck the table with force enough to rattle pewter tankards. "The South has never warded the wall nor bled against the dead," she cried. "If they want to quibble over words while real wars rage, let their tongues freeze off. This is North blood. We keep our own laws." Yet the room was not convinced until Lady Mage herself stood. The last time Stark wed Stark, ice still hung in Brandon's hand. She reminded them, and Winterfell ruled unbroken for 1,000 years. "The pact before us is no lesser sacredness than the old ways that bind us to tree and wolf. If marriage forges the sword that cuts our enemies in half, then let the blade shine true." Menaralsan. So the vote passed, albeit with misgivings etched in a few corners. Jon had listened with stoic patience, Sansa with seemingly impassive serenity, while behind her calm, she counted each pulse that urged caution. She remembered Littlefinger's conspiratorial whispers in the crypt, promising impossible alliances sealed by weddings. She had watched him die for those manipulations, but now she would wield a similar strategy, though with honesty where his plots had brimmed with poison. The day of the betrothal, there were no minstrel ballads or sweetmeats imported from the Reach. Instead, harsh winds thrummed through the courtyard banners. Maester Walken recited ancient vows he had uncovered in worm-eaten annals, lines once spoken between the sons and daughters of Bael the Bard and disguised Stark maidens reclaimed from wildling thraldom. No gloved priest of the seven officiated. The godswood alone bore witness. Heart tree face weeping red sap as Jon and Sansa knelt upon the roots. Jon's voice, raw as cold steel hammered thin, rang out first. Old gods, hear me. I stand not as Eddard's son of stone, nor as Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, nor as king in the north. I kneel as the north itself, bound to this woman my blood and my strength, so the last hearth will not fail, and the dawn will not die. Them. Sansa laid her palm atop his mailed hand. Her words floated like white feathers across the sacred silence. I was once sold to southern crowns and golden lions, she confessed. But the snows brought me home, and the direwolf in me howls louder than any queen's decree. Hear me, old gods. I take Jon Snow's heart as mine that Winterfell's pack may never be scattered again. And now, the weirwood bowed under heavy ice as if nodding. A breeze lifted Sansa's fiery hair, curling around Jon's own dark locks, braiding them briefly before the gust passed. In that moment, watchers later swore, the direwolf banner overhead seemed to ripple in time with some unseen heartbeat. Afterward, they bound their wrists with a strip of direwolf hide that Arya had tanned herself. Ghost. Silent sentinel with red eyes glowing, paced once around them, then sat at Jon's side, chin high as if reminding all present that though men might craft alliances, true loyalty grew from older soil. Far to the south in the Red Keep, ravens thundered against closed shutters. Queen Cersei Lannister broke their seals one by one, her belladonna eyes narrowing. When she reached the northern missive, laced with both stark wax and cryptic runes of house sigils, she read slowly, lips pulling taut. So the wolf's bastard weds his sister to shore up his claim, she murmured, tracing the letter as though it might bleed. Disgust wrapped in snow. Sir Qyburn hovered near the window. It appears they mean for the Vale men and river lords to rally behind them, your grace. A single northern kingdom stretching from the neck to the twins would prove inconvenient. Bah. She shrugged off the threat like an ill-fitting cloak, yet felt its chill all the same. A bride of the north cannot birth dragons. Let them play at loyal love. There is only one queen in this realm. Then so. But even Cersei could not disregard the deeper message. By sealing House Stark within itself, Jon had declared he sought no alliances with lion or dragon. The north would welcome neither conqueror. At Dragonstone, Daenerys Stormborn stood upon a cliffside balcony, wind snapping her silver hair like banners of an age-forgotten Valyria. It was Tyrion who delivered the news. His mismatched eyes flitted between parchment and the horizon where waves crashed. The north has forged its own chain, he sighed. Jon Snow has wedded Sansa Stark. Daenerys watched black-winged shapes wheel above the sea, Drogon circling restless. Rhaegal crouched on the jagged spire. The dragons sensed subtle turbulence in their queen's blood. He secures loyalty, she conceded, voice hushed but unyielding. A wise move, if cold? He may fear bending the knee, Tyrion offered carefully. But he does not exile visitors. He will parley, so long as we come as friends rather than overlords. The queen folded the letter. Yet every marriage is a message, and the one he sends is clear. We will have colder hearts to thaw than I anticipated. Bedin. Back in Winterfell, the feast following the Godswood ceremony lacked the southern decadence of arbor wine and Dornish peppers, but it brimmed with honest fare. Thick stews of venison, trenchers of crusted rye, and pale honey cakes Sansa had observed being prepared. She believed a northern table should open its arms to every sworn sword. Servants poured dark ale and spiced cider while lyre strings played modest reels. Jon and Sansa sat side by side beneath the direwolf sigil, each adjusting to the weight of new identities. At times, Sansa noticed Jon's eyes drift toward the hall's arched exits, as though expecting ghosts of his vows to the watch or memories of Ygritte to slip inside. She nudged him lightly with her ankle beneath the table, a silent promise that the past had been paid in full and a new debt called the future stood demanding attention. Bran watched them both from a carved weirwood white chair, pale and inscrutable, as though he already sifted through echoes of possibilities only a three-eyed raven could fathom. Arya leaned nearer to him and murmured a jest that coaxed a wry curve from his lips, something Sansa had not seen in him for moons. Gendry, newly legitimized Baratheon, now served beside the stark long tables, exchanging brotherly nods with Jon Dagdai. Beneath flickering torchlight, a mosaic of alliances took shape, some sealed, some still uncertain. 6 nights later, Jon summoned his council. Around the carved table sat Sir Davos, Lyanna Mormont, Lord Royce of the Vale, Jon Royce's silver beard gleaming, the ever-brooding Theon Greyjoy, and his sister Asha, unwelcome but necessary harbingers from the Iron Islands, plus the pale northern maester, and a handful of wildling chiefs. Sansa presided at Jon's right hand, her quill poised above parchment to record each vow given. Tormund scouts bring word, Jon began, rolling out a crude map. The dead have not crossed Eastwatch this season, but their numbers swell near Hardhome. We cannot wait for Southern War to finish before we meet this threat. Many, Lord Royce harumphed. But the Vale cannot march blindly into snowstorms chasing tails. Tormund Giantsbane bared teeth. Tails? I touched one of those glass-eyed bastards with my own axe. Sir Davos intervened. We discuss this every moon. And yet, the living forget. The true war is for all breathing men, whether lion or wolf. Daenerys Targaryen may bring dragons, but even fire cannot defend every village. We need steel, dragonglass, and a wall of unity thicker than the old one. Bah! Sansa inked notes, her script sharp. She sought not only to chronicle, but to craft arguments for letter ravens soon to fly to White Harbor and the Twins, to Tully heirs and Frey turncoats desperate for new patronage. She would use words as swords, forging them in the rhetoric she had learned, beneath the Queen Regent's razor tongue. This time, her fletching would not betray her. When the meeting adjourned, Jon lingered by the open shutters. Snowflakes dusted his curls, melted along scars at his neck. You wear crowns and bear burdens, Sansa said, stepping to his side. But I will not allow them to freeze your heart. It endures because of you, he answered, eyes thawing. Before, I bled for any cause that felt righteous. Now, I bleed for ours. She rested her chin against his shoulder, inhaling pine and steel. In the courtyard below, Arya sparred with Podrick Payne, their practice blades clacking in the crisp air. Ghost watched from atop a snowy parapet. Life at Winterfell had regained a semblance of rhythm, yet each drumbeat marched closer to war. Ravens soon carried messages south. Some asked for food shipments, others for masons to repair the King's Road bridges still scarred by war. A select few invited minor lords of the Riverlands to Winterfell for a grand midsummer moot. An unprecedented gathering beneath the northern banners, promising mutual defense and profitable trade. Edmure Tully, newly freed from the Twins, considered the invitation with measured relief. His wife Rosalind wept at the prospect of returning to a hall free of Frey cruelty. Many river lords, bankrupted by Lannister levies, now saw the North as a safer gamble than Cersei's faltering coffers. Even House Tyrell, what remained of it, sent discreet feelers through Old Town brokers. The Reach starved under Lannister rule, its harvest tithed away to fund the Iron Throne's debts. If bread could be traded for northern granite or Vale silver, perhaps a new commerce corridor might bypass the crown entirely. Jon and Sansa's union thus sowed seeds that ripened every day. 1 month into marriage, Jon shared his plan to ride to White Harbor. With a company of knights and wildling trackers, he would meet Lord Manderley and secure ships for dragonglass shipments from Dragonstone, should Daenerys agree. Sansa nodded, though her heart tightened. She had fought to keep Jon alive too many times to watch him vanish into unknown webs again. Wyman will honor his promise, she said, smoothing the map across the war table. But do not enter his port as a lone wolf. Take Davos. His smuggler's tongue will weigh anchor faster than you expect. She tapped the parchment where the bight curved inland. And send Arya along the King's Road as our unseen eyes. Cersei's spies are thicker than bramble. Ben? Jon touched her hand on the inked coastlines. You command like father. She smiled, remembering Eddard's gentle firmness. I command like a Stark. Beneath her words lay another. And I command because you trust me. He left 2 mornings later, under skies streaked with auroras. Ghost paced beside his horse until the gates closed. Sansa watched from the battlements, fur hood framing her face like a flame in the snow. She did not wave. She kept her posture queen strong. For Winterfell needed to see stability etched in bone and breath, not sentimentality. Alone, Sansa immersed herself in governance. She met with harvest stewards who feared a lean season after last winter's harsh bite. She negotiated new terms with the smiths, whose forges never cooled now that spears and axes must multiply. She walked among the orphan boys trained by Ser Brienne for messenger duties, and promised them thicker cloaks before frostfall. At night, she studied letters from Maester Samuel Tarly in Old Town describing dragonglass properties, and copied passages to send to every blacksmith north of the Neck. Yet her most delicate chore lay in taming the Vale. Lady Royce, representing sickly King Robin Arryn, remained at Winterfell with her retinue. She pressed polite questions about inheritance and rule. Should you and Lord John fail to produce heirs, Lady Royce began over mulled wine, how will succession be guaranteed? The Vale invests men and coin in this union. Sansa's jaw clenched. We have not been wed a moon, and already you worry about heirs. The gods measure life in generations, my lady. Be patient. Lady Royce, unfazed, traced a pattern on the oak tabletop. Forgive bluntness, but the Arryn line. Sansa cut in, voice frigid. Will endure, I promise. That night, she wrote to Jon. The Vale presses claims. They taste southern decadence and fear dragons. Ride back soon. Winter may be ours, but autumn's ambitions bloom fast. South of the Twins, the Brotherhood without banners harried Lannister supply lines. Lord Glover's spies learned that Sir Jaime Lannister now marched west to secure the Reach's grain. Winterfell's council saw opportunity. If the Crown's army stretched thin, the North might seize the Neck, choking Cersei's access to fresh men. But Sansa advised caution. We do not march until we know if the Dragon Queen intends friendship or fire. She counseled. Her experience with queens, Cersei, Margaery, even the memory of Mance's queen in the North Stannis fought, had taught her trust is a blade with 2 edges. Arya soon returned from her secret ride, a grin sharp as needle's point. I counted 3 Lannister informers on the King's Road that I could see. 2 now serve ale in a silent sister hospice. 1 rides south with a limp. Sansa hid her wince. Arya's methods left little room for mercy. Did you find word of Daenerys? A rumor in every tavern. Arya perched atop the table. They say her fleet anchors near Blackwater Rush. Dragons screeching over the narrow sea. I doubt she'll be patient much longer. Sansa's fingers curled around her quill. Then we must finish building a voice that cannot be ignored when her banners appear. When Jon came home, ghosts of tension rode with him. He brought good tidings. Lord Manderley pledged 50 cogs and 10 round-bellied merchantmen to transport ore, provisions, and wildling refugees if need arose. White Harbor's wealth mingled with wolf loyalty now. Yet Jon's eyes held storms. In his absence he had learned of Melisandre's execution by Queen Daenerys. Tyrion's letter explained the Red Woman's past crimes, many of which Jon himself had endured. But for all her sins, she had resurrected him. He could not shake the echo of fate gnawing his ribs. He met Sansa in the Godswood at dusk. The red leaves glowed like embers. She claimed the life of a child, Sansa reminded quietly. Perhaps the Dragon Queen seeks justice. Justice eats itself if fed too much blood. Jon muttered, but I cannot judge her from afar. I will ride south to meet her. And depart the north again? Sansa's protest melted into the still air. If you leave, half our lords will whisper you kneel to her after all. Then come with me. The words escaped him before caution. He watched them hang between them like mist rising off a hot spring. A queen should meet a queen. Sansa considered. If I go, Winterfell will be left to Bran, and Arya will guard him. Her breath birthed frost. Very well, Jon Snow. Let us meet this breaker of chains. They prepared for the journey, forging letters to reassure their bannermen. Bran offered cryptic warnings. She brings 3, but perhaps only one chooses the north. They puzzled over that, yet no time remained to pry deeper. Their caravan wound south, through the neck. There Theon, reconciled to some shard of honor, guided them along hidden crossings between bog iron islands, where deadly quickmire devoured slower feet. Reed men, followers of Howland, offered eels and knowledge. Cersei's forces garrisoned Moat Cailin deeper than ever, but cracks appeared inside those stones. Among the entourage, Sansa kept her face calm, though each mile stole a layer of safety she had fought to craft. She leaned on her marriage vows, on trust in Jon, to steady her. At White Harbor, fleets unfurled sails bearing the merman sigil that now adorned a stark direwolf quartering. Lady Asha Greyjoy arrived with 3 black sails of her own, promising swift passage. Jon's company resolved to sail around the Fingers, rather than brave the King's Road funneling straight to enemy jaws. On deck, Sansa discovered seasickness. Jon teased her gently, offering ginger biscuits Davos swore quelled any mutiny of the stomach. Under a sky of hammered steel, they crossed the bight, and Rhaegal's silhouette appeared far off like a green shard of dawn. Drogon followed, overshadowing even the warships below. The dragon's cries rolled across waves, a reminder that man's alliances rise or fall beneath wings older than kingdoms. Cape Wrath jutted outward in jagged ruin, and there the convoy came upon Daenerys Targaryen's fleet, sails black and red with a sigil of 3 heads aflame. Their arrival did not spark immediate war. Tyrion Lannister himself rode out, offering a parley upon Dragonstone's shore. Jon, clad in heavy furs despite the southern warmth, disembarked with Sansa by his side. Sand, not snow, crunched under their boots. As they climbed the switchback steps to the Dragonstone gate, heat radiated upward from volcanic veins. It was Sansa who first noticed the smell, sulfur and salt mixing like fermented blood. Atop the last stair, 2 Dothraki blood riders barred their path until Missandei announced them, in the many titles of her queen. Sansa listened, measuring each epithet. Breaker of chains, mother of dragons, Khaleesi of the great grass sea, and wondered what Westeros might call her own titles, if ever carved in stone. Inside the throne room, Daenerys awaited upon a seat carved from fused black glass. Firelight danced across her silver hair. Jon felt the weight of Sansa's closeness. Without it, he feared he might drown in déjà vu, recalling Mansa's Hall or Hardhome's doomed shore. Introductions passed like sword-testing strikes. Tyrion greeted Sansa with a curt nod, lingering guilt in his gaze for all King's Landing had done to her. Though that marriage had been mostly in name, the memory still stung. Daenerys' eyes flicked to the interlocked direwolf brooches on Jon and Sansa's cloaks. "I had expected you to bend the knee to the Iron Throne, King in the North," she said. A statement framed as courtesy yet heavy with malleable threat. Jon answered, "I bent no knee, Your Grace, because the North remembers promises made and broken by Iron Throne after Iron Throne. We come not as vassals, but as allies. One sovereign realm to another. Our enemy stands behind a wall of death." "And now," Tyrion interjected, "we believe you, Jon. The undead host is real, and we need proof to present to lords who still doubt." He glanced at Sansa. "Your letters speak of dragonglass mines beneath Dragonstone." Sansa stepped forward, voice measured. "We propose joint extraction. My smiths know the metal. Your dragons know flame to forge it swiftly. In return, we pledge northern troops to any siege upon King's Landing once the dead are dealt with." Daenerys raised a brow. "And what will you pledge to me, Lady Sansa, besides iron and words?" Sansa held the Queen's gaze. "I pledge the North's independence to stand beside you, not beneath you. 2 kingdoms united by purpose rather than chains." Silence coiled. Drogon screamed outside, shaking dust from rafters. Finally, Daenerys spoke. "Purpose is a fragile bond, Lady Stark, but perhaps the only one worth forging." Thus negotiations began, days stretching like drawn bows, each arrow of argument loosed carefully. Jon offered white bear pelts. Daenerys offered chips. Tyrion scribbled figures. Davos cautioned prudence. And Sansa watched every face, weighing truth and hunger. Back home, Bran dreamwalked through ravens and direwolf memories. He saw flames licking at Winterfell's walls. Future or past, he could not tell. He sent ravens south. Winterfell stands, but the night is long and full of traps. Arya read the scroll, strapped Valyrian's steel dagger to her thigh, and boarded the next ship to Eastwatch. Some wars required ghosts more than banners. 7 nights into parley, Jon and Sansa found a moment of seclusion atop a Dragonstone balcony, fringed by obsidian spires. Waves crashed below like titans chained in eternal conflict. Moonlight etched their faces. "Do you regret the marriage?" Jon asked. The question had haunted him since he watched Daenerys' gaze sharpen whenever she looked between them. Sansa's answer was immediate. "Never. Marriage is a castle we built of truth, Jon. Of all the walls I have known, I trust this one most." He exhaled. "I fear politics may pry at its stones. Then we strengthen it." She laced her fingers through his. "We speak with one voice, no matter who stands before us." Jon lifted her hand to his lips, breathing the promise into his bones. On the 8th day, Daenerys led them down to a cavern where obsidian veins glimmered like midnight stars. Torchlight revealed cave drawings of children of the forest, and first men fighting White Walkers. Jon traced a child's crude spear dripping with icy blue paint. "These are your proof," Sansa whispered. She felt the ancient art pulse like heartbeats from another age. "No quill can deny this." Tyrion studied the walls. Lannister vaults paled beside such treasure. Daenerys watched Jon's awe with an expression half soft, half steel. "You asked for dragonglass. Take it freely. But when the time comes, the North will answer my call." Jon nodded. "The North keeps its word," Sansa added, "and its crown." Daenerys' smile flickered. "Recognition of a challenge. Then let us test if 2 crowns weigh heavier than 1 throne." As miners set to work, ravens arrived bearing darker news. The Night King marched on Eastwatch. Bran's vision clarified. Ice spiders large as hounds scuttled over waves frozen solid. The war they had planned for came sooner than any had feared. Jon prepared to sail north with dragon escorts. Daenerys insisted on riding with him. Sansa agreed, albeit reluctantly. She understood new alliances often required shared bloodshed. To refuse might fracture trust forged only days earlier. Before departure, Tyrion requested a private word with Sansa de Tia. They met beneath charred arches of the castle's septa. "I wronged you through inaction," he said. "And for that, I am sorry. I forgave you long ago," she admitted. "But you owe Jon truth. Tell him Daenerys' heart wavers between mercy and conquest. The North will not trade one tyrant for another." Tyrion inclined his head. "I will counsel as I can. But know this. Dragon's fire is not easily smothered." Sansa sighed. "Neither is northern winter." They embarked aboard Manderley's flagship Argent Tide. Dragons spiraling overhead. Sansa stayed near Bran's raven messages, each ink blot a prophecy half-formed. She worried for Arya on Eastwatch's walls, for the lords at Winterfell readying grain convoys, for the heartbeat of her marriage to a man who might die facing the Night King. Jon found her one evening at the prow, cloak whipped by salt wind. "You once told me to be brave," she reminded him, eyes reflecting the sea. "Now I say the same. Be brave, but return. The North needs its king. I need my husband." He touched her cheek. "I will return." He believed it. She forced herself to believe as well. Above them, Drogon roared at the waning moon, a sound of challenge so vast it seemed to tear open the sky. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the wall waited, a barrier of ice soon to be tested by flame and death. Night fell heavy and starless as the fleet closed on Eastwatch. Fires burned along the wall top like candles fighting an endless dark. The winds howled with the mournful voices of lost rangers. Snow began to fall in sheets so thick it erased horizon and hope. Jon stood beside Sansa on deck, Ghost at his heel. In the gloom ahead they glimpsed motion, shadows swarming upon the ice. The army of the dead had arrived first. Davos shouted orders. Sailors unfurled signal lanterns. Dragons shrieked overhead. In that moment Sansa felt the world narrow to a singular point. A seam between life and oblivion. Jon squeezed her hand once. "Whatever comes, remember Winterfell." She answered with a nod, voice stolen by the wind. Then they stepped onto frozen sand, where war waited like an open grave. And so the marriage that had begun as a promise of unity would be tested in the crucible of death and dragonfire. Its vows echoed not beneath a weirwood's crimson gaze, but under a sky blotted by endless snow. The story was only beginning. Il-Ka. The wind keened over Eastwatch by the sea like some grieving widow, gathering strength as it funneled between the stone towers and smacking spray up the sheer ice face of the wall. In the moonlit dark, that colossal barrier loomed pale as a ghost ship, hauling its own shadows across the shingle where Jon's force had made landfall. Torches hissed and guttered in the gale. Flame was stingy here. Every spark felt hunted by the cold, and by the glimmering eyes massed beyond the frosted dunes. Snow whirled sideways, blinding men even beneath their hoods. It clung in whorls to Sansa's lashes as she dismounted beside Jon Dadal. She could feel the brutality in the air, the sort that crawled under fabrics and nested against the bones. Dire north, nearer than ever, and yet her mind, sharpened by years of courts and dungeons, instinctively inventoried every element of the battleground. Towering sea-gate arch half-choked by ice, outer rampart bowed from endless storms. Pebble-strewn approach that might turn slippery under gore. The sand itself, hidden beneath rime, could suck at boots before giving way to treacherous, slick shale. Eastwatch was not designed for mass defense. It was a warning post, and warnings were made to be broken. Arya was first off the second boat. Her cloak snapped back by the blast. She wore leather light enough to vanish into the dark at will. Needle sheathed across her spine like an accusation awaiting a throat. Ghost bounded from the deck, landing on crusted snow with a muffled crunch. Hackles high, eyes wildfire red in the gloom. Farther overhead, Drogon and Rhaegal flapped in wide orbits, each pass stirring the air into vortexes that dislodged crusted powder from half-ruined crenellations. Every wingbeat thundered like metal sheets in a gale. On the seawall ramp, Sir Davos barked the landing order, counting what fighters they possessed and how fleeting that number might become once the first wight's ice-blue gaze found them. Inside Eastwatch's gatehouse, gaunt rangers ushered Jon's party through tunnels, where breath plumed and rime-coated rough timber braces. The stink of night soil mingled with rancid lamp tallow. Yet beneath it all lay that unmistakable odor of mortal fear. Not rank but cloying, as if every inhalation carried a memory of the last fatal gasp. They passed makeshift infirmaries, barrel-lit alcoves where broken men shivered under thinning blankets, limbs dashed off by the undead's ravening. A boy of perhaps 14 stared blankly at his own stump, bandaged with sailcloth. He did not weep. Sansa's heart flinched for him. But there was no salve this night, save survival. Jon found the senior surviving officer, a rangy watchman named Cotter Pike, poring over a hand-drawn chalk map, scraped onto a plank propped by crates of bitumen. Cotter's voice rasped with salt wind and desperation. "Seen and build a causeway, O bodies," he said, jabbing the chalk at a section labeled shore ice. "They drag the drowned from the sea, stack aim till the tide freezes fast, then march the next wave over. They'll have a pier straight to our gate by dawn." Jon's eyes hardened. How many torches left? We're down to pitch buckets and prayer. Cotter glanced at the queen beyond Jon, wary of the dragons overhead. Not of their flame so much as whether they'd burn friend and foe alike. Even prayers runnin' thin. Sansa eased beside Jon, studying the chalk lines. "Where does the ice pier meet the wall base?" Cotter scratched a smudge. "Here. Shelf shallow. They'll try to undercut our west tower footings." He eyed her, copper-gray beard twitching. "They've done it before at smaller keeps. Rats chew out the supports, whole tower slumps." Daenerys approached, Missandei at her flank. Despite the chill, The Dragon Queen gave no sign of feeling it. Only her cheeks blushed faintly pink. "My dragons can sweep the pier apart." she said. "But fog will hamper sight." Jon knew that too. He feared chasing silhouettes, while the Night King slipped spears through the blind side. He bent over the plank, hands braced. "We'll strike with dragon's first light," he said. "But tonight, we must thin their numbers from the ramparts. Oil, arrows, flickering barricades. Sansa, the quartermasters must double rations of pitch to West Tower cauldrons. If that piers their path, we turn it into a funeral pyre." She nodded. Behind her quill-quick mind spun through volumes of supply, recalculating into columns of need. Bran's Raven Scroll had said, "Eastwatch stands if flame meets water." She prayed the oracle's sight held true. Hours crawled by. Every movement in the dark set nerves thrumming. From the seaward ice fields came faint sounds like chimes, telltale clack of ice limbs colliding in undead ranks. The tide retreated and left a shining black skin across the beach, a mirror for the starlight. Except there were no stars, only roiling bruise clouds swirling overhead at unnatural speed, drawn by a cold so ancient it remembered the first scream of men. High on the wall walkway, Sansa stood between Arya and Davos. Thin torches flickered along the 100-yard parapet, each flame issuing a beleaguered hiss. Feet away, smiths hammered dragonglass arrowheads onto shafts. The odor of pine tar resin half-veiled the acrid smoke curling from braziers. Sansa clenched gloved hands around the icy stone merlon and peered out. She could just discern the front of the undead host, a ragged, fluttering mass, like a wind-tattered banner that never ends. Shapes shuffled and twisted. A horse skeleton tottered sideways, yawning in unnatural silence. She swallowed. That endless field would soon press against Eastwatch, and there were not enough men alive anywhere south of the wall to stem it outright. Delay was survival. Jon paced a circuit along the parapet, checking each cauldron. Oil concealed beneath snow would not freeze if they kept low flames breathing at its base. He found Sansa where the battlements gave a vantage along the beach. Snow lice dotted her hair silver. "You should rest," he said. "I rested on the journey," she answered. "Besides, you'll need eyes that still function after dawn glare upon snow." He allowed a faint smile. "Stubbornness is a stark virtue." She did not look away from the void beyond. "And necessary, it seems." Arya drew near, needle balanced along gloved fingers. "One of the Night King's lieutenants roams the far flank." Her voice was low, but ardent. "Give me a grappling hook and I'll bring you his head before morning." Sansa shot her a stern look. "No heroics. Kill him, the dead he turned may fall? But you'd never escape an entire army alone." Arya shrugged. "I'd only need a moment." Jon placed a hand on Arya's shoulder. He felt the wiry tension coiled in her. She was a blade drawn halfway, wanting to taste cold flesh. "Your time will come," he promised. "But not yet. For now, hold the rampart. Guard Sansa." Ghost padded to the parapet's brink and emitted a low growl. Eyes below flashed blue like shards of iceborne lightning. The tide of dead advanced another half a bowshot, then stilled. They were waiting. Inside the East Tower's map room, Daenerys unrolled a vellum sheet drafted at Dragonstone. Painted glyphs, delineated dragon, attack, vectors. Tyrion hovered, nursing a tin cup of fortified wine, his breath puffing steam. He kept glancing at the Queen's expression. Steel resolution yet tempered by unease. Dragons had never flown this far north. Air thinner, unpredictable updrafts from the wall's face. Fire met water and created scalding steam walls. How would that impact droplet freeze on wings? Jorah Mormont, pale under thick bear fur, voiced the concern. Drogon's wings iced once at Winterfell last year. If it happens again mid-swipe, he'll plunge. Daenerys stroked a lock of silver hair behind her ear. "Then we keep flight low in Strophe. A quick blaze, then rise to warmer altitudes." Tyrion placed the wine aside. The Night King's javelin felled Viserion in open sky. "If he's here, he'll be looking for another shot." His voice trailed. weighed by memory. "We shield Jones' squad," Daenerys said. "They sail across to Harrenhal at dawn to lure wight for southern proof. Drogon and Rhaegal cut the pier, then we escort the retrieval." The hand met her gaze. "And if the Night King aims for one of us?" She exhaled. "Then we burn him first." When gray light seeped over eastern waters, it filtered through a fog so dense the sunrise looked like a dying ember. The sea was calm in defiance of the shrieking wind that had plagued them all night. Atop the wall, archers rolled shoulders stiff from cold. Sansa's fingers were numb, yet she forced them to check each fletch again. Arya was curled cat-like atop the merlon, her lived skin nearly indistinguishable from stone. A horn blast echoed. Cotter Pike's voice bellowed along the walkway. "They move!" Below, the dead surged. What had looked like fog-shrouded stillness exploded into forward momentum, a relentless wave of limbs and bone. They dragged makeshift shields of half-rotted hullboards. Some still dripped brine. The corpse pier jutted like a frozen tongue from the beach, ice slick shining under the first hint of day. Wights funneled onto it by the hundreds, clattering shields of driftwood and whale rib. Jon shouted, "Loose!" Flaming arrows sailed. They arced in clumsy trajectories because updrafts along the wall spun them, but enough tore into the mass to ignite pitch-slick shields. Bursts of orange blossomed along the pier as though sparks skipping across tinder. Wights trapped in flames staggered on but did not scream. The dead lacked lungs for agony. They simply collapsed, fueling their own pyres. Yet the pier endured. Bodies replaced bodies faster than fire consumed them. Jon signaled again. Rangers tilted cauldrons, sluicing boiling pitch across the wall face. Cascading black torrents met the pier's base, in hissing steam. Still it held. Night King's design not easily undone. Sansa heard the roar before she saw Drogon. A thunder of wings parted the fog as the dragon dived. His scales were coal-streaked by ember. Flame jetted from his maw, an immense torrent that carved a molten gash through the pier's midsection. Ice vaporized. Corpses exploded into drifting sparks. A triumphant cheer broke from the wall-top. But new undead already waded into the boiling channel, their flesh sloughing into froth, only to be replaced by the ranks behind. As steam thickened, Drogon's wings iced at the tips. Daenerys wheeled him skyward, vanishing momentarily into white gloom. Rhaegal followed, spraying green-tinged conflagration along the West Tower's base, where wights attempted to scale with bone hooks. Ladders of rib cages fell away under flame, but again the gap filled. Cotter Pike cursed. "At this rate we'll run out of fire, for they run out o' dead." Jon turned to Davos. "Signal the Hardhome skiffs. We cannot hold this line forever. We strike the Night King's flank, draw him off." Sansa gripped his arm. "You cross waters swarming with undead. They will drag that skiff under." He met her eyes, jaw steeled. "If we bring proof south, Daenerys and Cersei must unite. Without it, all of this is meaningless." Her throat constricted. She wanted to plead, forbid him. But she had married a king of purpose, not a castle bauble. She nodded. "Slow, deliberate. Then return, or every arrow I knock today will be loosed for vengeance." He pressed forehead to hers despite the chaos around. She smelled the salt, the pine, the dragonglass dust from his leather gloves. Then he turned, descending rope ladders to the boat landing. Arya slid beside Sansa, eyes flicking after him. "He'll return. Dragons owe him." Then Samandari. Sansa stared at her sister's profile. The stoic mouth, the hawk eyes. She wondered if Arya believed her own words or spoke them to steady Sansa. It did not matter. She inhaled the bitter air where Jon had stood, and drew her bowstring. Down at water level, waves lapped sluggishly, already scumming with shards of ice. Jon and Davos boarded a narrow skiff with 6 wildlings and Gendry at the oars. Bran's last raven insisted the undead encircled Hardhome in a ruinous ring, but left a breach along a cliff path. One the Night King kept open as a hunting corridor. The plan: slip through, seize a single wight, Intact. Retreat. As they shoved off, Rhaegal screamed overhead, strafing the sea with flame to break flows. Steam wreathed the skiff, and Jon's lungs ached with each breath. They rode into white oblivion, the wall diminishing behind them like a sinking moon. From above the rampart, Sansa watched that dot fade. A primal cry welled inside her throat, but emerged only as a hiss. She pivoted back to battle. Wights now hurled javelins of jagged ice. One whickered past, clattering off stone. Another skewered a ranger's shoulder. He toppled from the parapet into the writhing mass below. Sansa caught the man's scream, the voice of someone still living, swallowed instantly by those who were not. She loosed 3 arrows in rapid succession. Visions of Ramsay and Joffrey, and all her tormentors fused into each target. Dragonglass fletch sunk into ocular sockets, dropped monsters mid-claw. Arya darted along the wall top, slashing exposed dead that reached high on chain grapples. Her dagger, a Valyrian blade gifted by Bran, glimmered oily blue in half-light. She fought like a ghost of wind and fury, each thrust smooth as leaf fall. Her laughter, high and sharp, startled even northern archers. They'd never heard such savage joy. But none would call it madness. It was freedom born of vengeance. East Tower groaned. A mass of undead had hammered at its western anchor foot all night, and now, with the pier partly intact, more poured across to join. Jorah commanded Dothraki screamers along the ramp. Their arcs hissed as they sliced undead torsos. But the wights felt no fear of curved blades. They only clawed to pull riders down. Asha's Ironborn, stationed at that choke, used sea axes to hack limbs away. Stench of briny rot roiled upward. Inside the tower, Sansa felt a quake rumble through the floor. Lamps swung. She sensed rock shift. Cotterpike shouted. Ports failing. Pull men back to second tier. Rangers scrambled down narrow stairs. Undead burst through hull-sized cracks as timber braces splintered. Sansa and Arya found themselves on a stairwell mid-collapse. Dust plumed. A section caved, spilling rime-coated corpses upward as pressure equalized. Arya leapt the gap, caught a joist. She stretched an arm toward Sansa. Debris rained. Rocks, ancient tool racks, shards of frozen rope. Sansa sprang, fingers grazing Arya's but missing. She slammed into splintered railing, ribs knocked breathless. She clung, feet dragging above a snapping void where wights clawed the stone underside. Arya dropped to one knee, hooking her boot behind a beam. "Give me your hand." Sansa's glove slipped. Ice-laced leather offered no purchase. She scrambled, but a dead hand latched her ankle, jerked downward. Pain shot through her hip. She twisted, driving a spare dragonglass dagger into the thing's wrist. Shards of frost burst. She swung again, severing the hand, then gasping. She lurched upward and seized Arya's wrist. With a grunt, Arya hauled her across. They sprawled on the narrow landing, coughing dust. Sansa's hair, unbound, splayed across her cheeks. Arya squeezed her shoulder. "See? He'll return, and so will you." Sansa allowed herself 2 heartbeats of relief, then rose. "We hold, or we die. Come." At sea, fog encapsulated the skiff. Rowers' breaths emerged as crystalline plumes. Gendry muttered prayers to every smith god he knew. The only sound was the slap of oars and the distant roar of dragons circling coastal cliffs. At times they glimpsed silhouettes, undead pinned on spikes of flow, heads lolling like broken puppets. But nothing moved vigorously. Hardhome's cliff reared out of the gloom. Jagged basalt, blacker than night. Burned remains of huts clung along the ledge. Those people long ago immolated by Tormund's own hand to spare them the fate of becoming wights. Along one ridge, ice stairs spiraled downward. Gaps revealed newly carved sections where the undead had extended pathways. That opening Bran foresaw lay there, a narrow defile between 2 toppled watch huts. They grounded the skiff and stormed the path. Jon led, sword Dawnfall, Valyrian steel gift from House Dane, unsheathed. Davos followed, lugging an iron cage. They intended to trap a single wight. Wildlings fanned outward, dragonglass axes raised. Sea mists parted to reveal cracked tilting platforms once used for fishing nets. There they saw them. A dozen walkers. Not wights, but the tall, pale commanders whose eyes glowed cerulean. They stood silent guard round a crude circle of runes burnt into the snow by frostfire. Arcane shapes swirling cold flame. In the center kneeled a solitary girl, white, hair tangled, limbs bound by rope of leathery sinew. Jon felt a dreadful hush settle. The presence of so many lieutenants this far from the host suggested deliberate bait. He motioned for caution, but even as his arm rose, the girl's head jerked up. A guttural hiss rattled her cracked lips. An unseen order moved her. Ropes snapped as though they'd never been taut. She lunged. Gendry swung a warhammer. She crumpled but crawled still. Davos kicked the cage toward Jon. Trap her! But as Jon stepped forward, another whirled its ice spear, launching at blurring speed. Jon ducked. The spear sheared a wildling's neck, and embedded into the basalt behind with a crystalline crack. Jon roared fury for the living and cut wide, severing the wight's outstretched arms. He kicked her torso into the cage. Davos slammed the door. But every walker's gaze shifted to Jon. Frost crept across their armored limbs. An unspoken signal launched them forward. Steel met crystal. Jon parried an icy blade that struck with inhuman force, jarring his arm to the shoulder. He riposted, Dawnfall cleaving through the other's collar and torso. The creature shattered into powder. But killing one walker ignited a chain. 3 more advanced, their breath pluming white. Wildlings muffled screams as they fell, throats torn by frost claws. Davos yanked dagger across a fallen walker's ankle. Shards flew. Gendry hammered down on skulls where he could. Yet the swarm pressed. Then a scream from above. Drogon plummeted. Maw ablaze, and the cliffside erupted into furnace heat. Walker ranks scattered, ice armor melting into water vapor. Jon seized the caged wight's handle. Davos grabbed his shoulder. They sprinted downslope as basalt shattered behind them like pottery. But another spearsmith, tall as a tower, raised javelin. Time slowed. Silver tip glinted even within gloom, lit by dragonfire. Jon's mind flashed to Viserion plunging at the lake. For heartbeat infinite he believed the spear aimed for Drogon again. But its path arced lower, straight for him. Instead, a figure leapt, wool cloak flapping, a flash of ghost white fur. Ghost hurled himself into the spear's flight. The shaft tore through the direwolf's flank and carried him aside. Jon's scream split the roar of battle. Ghost crashed, blood steaming. The walker raised another spear. Firestorm rained. Rhaegal blasted from Jon's left, dissolving the spear and half the walker to azure mist. Jon, half crazed, dragged the cage and Ghost's limp form, Davos covering with shield. Gendry and the 2 remaining wildlings fended off straggler wights. They made the skiff. Shoved off. Jon cradled Ghost, pressing cloth over the wound. Blood seeped between fingers. Red on white. At Eastwatch, the tower collapse had stemmed. Undead now funneled into the breach only to be bottlenecked by Dothraki pikes. Sansa emerged from dust-laden stairs to command arrow fire into the gap. She moved like Arrow herself. Straight, silent save orders. Though her lungs burned, her aim never wavered. Daenerys landed Drogon atop the wall to conserve wing strength. Ice quickly crusted edges of his membranes. He shook violently. She dismounted, strode to Sansa. "Jon?" she asked. "Across the bay," Sansa answered, loosing arrow. "Expect return soon." Daenerys surveyed the tower's rubble, the charred pier fragments still afloat beyond. Her expression tightened. "We've slowed them, but they will mass again by dusk. The Night King hasn't committed main strength. He's waiting for something." Sansa wiped snow off brow. "Perhaps to see if dragons and Starks exhaust each other. Perhaps he thinks to kill them both at once," Daenerys murmured. They shared a glance, queens united by dread. Sansa sensed in Daenerys not jealousy, at least not entirely, so much as a restless power unused to challenge outside open war. She respected that. But the North would not kneel. Even elective kneel. There must be shift in Old World's premise. People who bled should choose their own leash. She tightened bowstring. We face him again soon. She said, tonight, we bury our dead and fortify. At dawn we unleash every flame we have. Daenerys glanced upward where thickening clouds swirled unnatural shapes, drakes and direwolves interlaced. An omen. We may not have until dawn. She warned. On the skiff, Davos rode with wild urgency. Fog parted enough to reveal the wall's ghostly immensity again. Yet behind them, a low rumble tremored across water. The Walker Circle. Despite dragonfire, fire formed at cliff's edge. Unnatural frost magic quivered in the air, rolling outward as green aurora. Ice crackled across the sea's surface, racing like a plague after the skiff. Jon pressed Ghost's wound. Row. Gendry's oar sliced freezing water. Each stroke became harder as slush thickened. The caged wight snarled and banged the bars, though limbs were severed. Still the specter never ceased. Davos shouted warnings. The ice reached their stern-crusting hull wood. Suddenly the skiff lurched. Bow snagged. Abandon. Jon hollered. They vaulted onto yet unfrozen water ahead. Rhaegal swooped low, blasting green fire to shear newly formed ice, providing a narrow ribbon of churned liquid. They splashed waist-deep, shoving the cage atop floating debris. Frostbit spirits shrieked behind. They glimpsed figures skating unnatural speed across the flash-frozen sheet. Drogon descended near the shore, claws spearing the shallows. Davos reached him first. He and Gendry heaved the cage onto Drogon's foreclaw pivot. Jon hauled Ghost's limp form onto the dragon's back, wincing at the blood soaking into black scale grooves. Drogon bellowed, thrashing tail waterward to break ice as wights neared. A spear flew, iced javelin, grazed Drogon's left wing. Scale cracked but held. Daenerys called from the wall rampart, voice lost in wind. With everyone aboard or clinging to harness straps, Drogon vaulted upward, vertical, ignoring the pain. Rhaegal flanked. They soared above Eastwatch as the ice snap followed, fracturing along seams into jagged flows. Jon held Ghost against his chest. Direwolf's breath came shallow but alive. Relief warred with grief. They landed behind the main gate. Maesters hurried Ghost to crude infirmary. Jon relinquished him reluctantly, then thrust the caged wight at Cotter Pike. "This is proof," he said, voice raw. "Make sure it stays undead." Sansa emerged down the ramp, relief overshadowing her exhaustion. At sight of Ghost's blood on Jon's hands, her heart stuttered, but she masked it with purpose and hugged him once, fierce and quick. He murmured assurances. Wolf still lives, wight secured. Then he turned to strategy again. There was no time for weakness. Night approached as bone-cold dusk. The host of the dead had pulled back, not in defeat, but in patient calculation. Fires still dotted the beach, smoldering pyres of wights and men alike. Smoke drifted inland, mingling with drifting snow to create twilight haze inside walls. Within Eastwatch's great hall, a mere vaulted storeroom, they convened. Jon, Sansa, Daenerys, Tyrion, Davos, Jorah, Arya, Cotter Pike, Asha, and Gendry. The caged wight snarled in corner, limbs removed, head lolling yet animate. Every so often it rattled the cage. Chains clinked, spiking nerves. Jon addressed them. "At dawn we sail south. The wight goes to King's Landing. Cersei will see truth herself." Cotter spat. "Leave Eastwatch with half our numbers fled? Wall won't stand another week without dragonfire." Daenerys leaned forward. "Rhaegal remains here, under Jorah's command. Drogon ferries us to the Blackwater. Then wow." Sansa met her gaze. "One dragon cannot hold this pass alone." "For now, it must," Jon said. "We need unity of the southern kingdoms far more than second dragon here. If Cersei refuses, We bring proof to Storm's End, to the Reach, to every house until they rally. Without dragonglass forges and armies united, Eastwatch falls whether we stand here or not. Tyrion tapped quill on parchment. If we're to parley, we'll need safe conduct. I'll send ravens ahead to Jaime. At Sansa's eye narrow, he added, a king's brawl at the capital while the dead storm the wall benefits no one. Arya drummed fingers on needle hilt. We trust Jaime Lannister now. We trust necessity, Tyrion replied. Silence settled. Then Sansa spoke, voice steady but laced with weight. While you travel south, I return to Winterfell. Bran's visions and Samwell's scrolls hold secrets still. Valyrian texts speak of binding fire to the wall ice, some magic older than both. If there's a ritual to reinforce the wall, we will find it. Dan. Jon's brow furrowed, but he nodded. Send word with ravens if you learn anything that might save time. Daenerys regarded Sansa, reading deeper currents. This Lady Stark did not cower behind keep walls. She moved knights and queens across board alike. Daenerys respected strategy, though it tasted like rivalry. Winterfell will need more obsidian, she said. I'll order shipments along White Harbor route. Sansa inclined her head. Alliances forged by need grew stronger than those forged by fear. She would hold to that. Later, in a bereft antechamber lit by a single tallow candle, Jon tended Ghost, stroking icy fur. The direwolf's breaths came easier. The wound had been bound with dragonglass powder, salve recommended by a wildling wise woman. Still, Jon's voice cracked as he whispered old-tongue lullabies. Footfalls approached. Sansa stepped inside, closing the plank door. Candlelight cupped her cheek, painting freckled gold across pale skin. She stood by him without speaking until Ghost's breathing deepened into troubled sleep. Jon straightened, exhaustion weighting his shoulders. She took his hands, inspecting raw skin cracked from salt and wind. You bleed, she said. He considered the caked lines of crimson. I bleed every day. Her thumb brushed his palm. But I need you to bleed less. She raised eyes. They were glacial, fierce, and wholly tender. Promise me when we stand before Cersei you will not trade your life as easily as in Hardhome or Castle Black. You are king now, but you are also husband. He exhaled. I have never taken my life lightly. She smiled sadly. Lightly, no. Tenderly, perhaps. She leaned in, forehead to his. Remember, I fight too. We hold this realm together. Your sword, my words. Both are needed. Menderal. He pressed a kiss to her brow. I promise. Outside a horn wailed thrice. Signal of temporary enemy retreat. Time for pyre calm. But hearts stayed restless. Before dawn lit again. Final preparations. Daenerys strapped saddle harness across Drogon's back. Tyrion affixed the caged wight to stabilizing pins. Jon donned boiled leather armor beneath heavy Stark sigil surcoat. Arya adjusted his gorget, tugging to ensure no blade found gap. Should have left you my dagger, she muttered. I have Dawnfall, he replied. She snorted. Dragons don't stop spears. Keep your wits. Sansa offered him a rolled scrap of parchment, sealed with direwolf wax. White Harbor schedules and grain ledgers. She explained. Show the city wary houses the North prepares for all. He tucked it safe. Then they mounted. Jon, Daenerys, Tyrion, Davos, small crew, plus cage. Drogon unfurled wings. Snow swirled. Rhaegal roared answer and perched atop Eastwatch's tallest tower. Sentinel. Sansa stood among assembling garrison, Arya at her side. As Drogon vaulted, she met Yon's eyes once. He raised 2 fingers, a silent vow. Then sky swallowed them, east horizon streaked violet. The dead host had pulled back into forested glacial plain. Yet Sansa felt their chill linger. She turned to Cotter, Jorah, and Asha. We rebuild West Tower with rock fill, scrap iron, anything, she ordered. Arya, take a ranging party. Hunt supply caches left by free folk. We'll need tar, rope, dry wood. Arya grinned. And perhaps a few walker heads. Sansa did not forbid. Bring what you can. As they dispersed, she gazed once more toward the sea where dragons had vanished. Dawn's first light crowned the wall gold. Fleeting beauty before storm. She whispered a prayer to the old gods, and, half to her own surprise, to the stranger as well, for they all served on this dawn. Then she strode into the keep. Plans awaited, and winter did not linger for grief. On the flight south, Drogon sliced cloud banks tinted rose by sunrise. Tyrion clung to harness rings, knuckles white. Davos retched quietly over dragon-scale ridges when turbulence bucked them. Below, the neck's marshlands sprawled. Countless bog islands dotted with warm mist whirls. Glimpsed through swirl, the old causeway snakes of the children of the forest twisted half-sunken. Jon watched for columns of smoke. Sign of enemy camps, but saw none. South was still war-torn yet living. They landed at Moat Cailin where grey-water banners signaled safe rest. Howland Reed himself limped from the palisade, offering whispered counsel, reporting on Lannister patrols skirting the Twins. By midday Drogon soared again, bearing them across the Green Fort. Knights on the King's Road halted to gawp at the shadow overhead. Some prayed, some fled. Word outran them. Ravens soared to King's Landing. The wolf and dragon ride together. Cersei stood upon the battlements of the Red Keep when first rumors arrived. She watched the Blackwater reflect moving shadows, and felt a prickle of dread she had not tasted since wildfire hallucinations under the Sept's demise. Jaime approached, dressed in plain leather, golden hand glinting. So the bastard by the wall returns with a monster, she said. With proof, Jaime corrected gently. If it is as Tyrion claims, we should listen. Cersei's eyes met his, chips of polished amber hardened by suspicion. We listen, then we break them. A wight in a cage does not make a queen renounce her throne. Jaime looked away at the city's sprawl. Perhaps not. But if the dead are truly marching, there may be no throne by next spring. Cersei's jaw twitched. Then let spring wait. Rhaegal perched on Eastwatch's parapet long days, scanning horizon. Sansa busied company with labor, winches to hoist new cauldrons, melt pits to craft more arrowheads. Bran's latest raven perched on her wrist. He dreams of fires under ice and spells carved by stone hands into wall core. The message cryptic. Seek the hammer that rang the world. She gathered maesters. Only one recalled a legend of blacksmiths from Skagos, who forged runic hammers to fracture glacier passes ages before. She sent ravens to Skagosian lords, requesting any relics. Another message she dispatched to Samwell Tarly at Old Town requesting manuscripts on ice binding. Arya's rangers returned with caches, kegs of whale oil, barrels of pine resin, and captured supplies from a band of deserters wearing Lannister colors, scouts spying north. From them Arya won maps of secret tunnels beneath the neck. Sansa studied these. Infiltration routes might allow a sabotage strike at Moat if the dead circumvented by sea. Night after night, the undead tested Eastwatch. Rhaegal spewed flame until his throat bled. Still the numbers persisted. One evening, the Night King himself appeared upon a ridge of ice. Silent sentinel, blue eyes fixed upon the dragon. He raised his hand, as if beckoning. Rhaegal growled, but Jorah reined him. Not yet, he muttered. Not without Queen's command. When dawn broke, the Night King was gone, but his challenge remained. Far south, Drogon circled the charred shell of the dragon pit, once shelter to Targaryen beasts, now long dead. He landed amidst rubble. Herald trumpets bleated from the city walls. Crowds thronged the streets, necks craned skyward, half terror, half awe. Jon dismounted with tight jaw, the caged wight carried by 4 unsullied. Tyrion, Davos, and Daenerys followed. Gold cloaks lined the avenue flanked by Lannister infantry bearing crimson cloaks. Their spears rattled softly in the hush. Down the great street of the sisters they walked, every eye burning holes. Small folk with mouths shaped O in wonder, merchants pressing coins to icons hoping dragons favored them, septons crossing themselves, whispering of old prophecies. Above, desiccated gargoyles looked ready to leap. At the Red Keep's gate, Sir Jaime met them with 20 knights. He inclined head to Daenerys and to Jon. Not a bow, but a soldier's mark of respect. "My sister grants audience in throne room," he said, voice weary. "No weapons save those required to restrain." He gestured at the cage. They entered. Within, the throne room's mosaics glimmered with midday sun filtered by high windows. Queen Cersei reclined on iron throne, armored in black velvet and gold filigree, crown of starlight silver spikes. The mountain stood sentinel at her side, helmet visor a blank-plated death mask. Lords of Crownlands lined either flank. House Rosby, Stokeworth, Massey, Euron Greyjoy lounged to one side, grin oily. Cersei's gaze homed on Sansa's husband first. "King Snow," she said dryly. "Or is it King Wolf? Titles breed like rabbits these days." Her gaze slid to Daenerys. "And Dragon Queen come at last. Shall we call you conqueror or refugee?" Daenerys did not dignify. She spoke calm. "We bring demonstration of the enemy who marches. Your petty barbs cannot melt ice but may freeze hearts." Cersei smirked, but unease twitched at her jaw. Tyrion nodded to the Unsullied. They hauled the cage forward. Jon produced a dragonglass hammer, smashed lock. Silence fell. For a breath nothing moved. Then the wight burst free, jaws snapping. Gasps rippled. A lady fainted. The creature lunged toward Cersei but halted short. Davos' chain yoke jerked it back. Blue eyes reflected in the metal of Jaime's hand. Unnatural. Endless winter. Even the mountain's visor backed half a step. Cersei clutched chair arm. "Trickery," she breathed. But the wight hissed, limbs twitching, unstoppable in its hunger. Tyrion stepped up, sliced the wight's arm. The limb continued crawling across floor. Gasps gave way to shrieks. "We can kill it only with fire or dragonglass," Jon said. Demonstrating, he stabbed the severed arm with dagger. Arm went still, black veins shriveling. Cersei rose. Terror warred with pride. "And what do you ask?" "Truce," Jon demanded. "The living unite to face the dead. When that war is won, we may resume our disputes." Euron sauntered forward, though his swagger faltered beneath otherworldly glare. "Dragons and wolves too coward to fight lions?" he mocked. But his voice lacked its usual taunt. He eyed White warily, imagining such things scaling Pike's cliffs. Cersei's lips parted. She weighed throne against apocalypse. Her heart, impervious though, hesitated. Jaime watched her, silent plea in his lone good eye. She turned to Jon. "I will send armies north," she said. "If the north swears it will stay out of the war for my throne once the threat is ended." Tyrion's breath caught. Daenerys bristled. Jon met Sansa's absent gaze in memory. "We do not bend." But necessity again. "I cannot speak for my queen," Jon said, nodding to Daenerys. "But the north will fight only the dead." Daenerys, though momentarily startled, moved behind him. She addressed Cersei. "When the Night King is vanquished, we will speak of future peacefully. Not surrender, not even truce beyond the war, but a promise of talk." Cersei accepted with eyes narrowing, a loophole she believed wide. So accord made. Sealed by shared dread and the stink of rotting flesh. Yet fragile as frost on glass, months passed beneath furious tides of war. Cersei's legions marched north. Some truly fought, others exploited logistic holes to entrench in the neck. But the Night King at last advanced full along the coastline. At Eastwatch, Sansa watched glowing fires of crown armies flicker on horizons. Friend or foe? Bran's ravens arrived, hammer found. Skagos lords produced an obsidian-faced maul, etched with runes that pulsed dim violet. Samwell's manuscripts referenced ritual forging of the hammer that rang the world. An artifact that, when struck upon Weirwood Heartroot, could awaken earthfire slumbering under wall to weld ice anew with dragonglass veins, impenetrable. Risk. Overstrike could shatter wall entirely. Sansa ordered excavation of heart tree roots deep inside Eastwatch's crypt grove. Jorah guided Rhaegal to flame-melt channels within footing. Maesters inked circles of powdered sapphire. Arya's daggers claimed 2 more walkers lurking near cliffs. They wore blackened crowns of bone, perhaps generals. Each kill collapsed swaths of wights. Night came. Blood moon red smoldering behind scudding clouds. Sansa stood at Grove's Hollow, wearing cloak of weirwood and direwolf fur. She lifted the hammer, weight immense, pulsing cold through her gloves. Bran's ravens caught in frantic chorus across battlements. A hush overcame Eastwatch. Even undead paused, as if sensing. She swung. Thunk. Sound rang like bell toll cast in stone. Earth shuddered. From deep mews in bedrock, a thunderous groan rolled. Blue-white fissures spider-webbed across wall's face, then glowed crimson as heat surged up. Steam vented. Ice at base fused into black glass sheen. Wights attempted climb. Contact seared them into ash. Walker's sight reacted, raising arms to counter with frost spells, but arcane heat repelled. Sansa lifted hammer again. Bran's raven voice echoed. 1 strike binds. 2 strike shatters. She hesitated. The wall glowed now like sunrise locked in glacier. Jorah called, "Enough!" She lowered hammer. Runes dimmed to steady embers. Eastwatch shone, its base sealed by fused obsidian ice, slick and unscalable. The undead roared frustration. The living roared triumph. Rhaegal blasted those milling at foot, turning them to steam. But victory narrow. The Night King would find new paths. Perhaps at seas frozen by his magic, or at the now weekended section near Castle Black. Sansa dispatched messengers. Winterfell must ready second hammer once forged. Beyond neck and trident, Jon and Daenerys marshaled combined forces. Unsullied, Dothraki, northern levies, Knights of the Vale. Lannister blocks commanded by Jaime. Cersei remained. At White Harbor, they embarked north along East Coast in galleys escorted by dragons. Ghost healed, though scarred, rode on the flagship with Jon. Sansa awaited their arrival. Reunion occurred upon new-formed plateau outside Eastwatch, where snow melted under obsidian heat. Jon dismounted. Sansa stepped into his arms. They held each other amid scent of frost and ash, under swirl of dragons overhead. Jon whispered, "South trembles. They may aid, they may betray. But winter's heart still beats." Sansa pulled back, eyes bright. "We have hammered the wall, it holds for now. We must strike out, meet the Night King before he finds side passage." Daenerys approached, cloak billowing. "Then we march inland, toward the Shadow Valley where Bran's visions end. We end him where he hid from dragons last age." Jon nodded. Davos raised his voice, rallying ranks. Across snowy horizon, banners rose. Direwolf, 3-headed dragon, lion, mockingbird of the mountain clans, merman of Manderley, sunspear of Dorne, small contingent, silver moon of Arryn, all improbable allies beneath pale aurora curtain. Wind gusted. Ghost howled. Deep. Mournful yet defiant. Thousands of throats answered, terrible vow to live. North of them, clouds churned unnatural turquoise. The war for the dawn began in earnest. Night deepened as campfires dotted hillside like scattered constellations. Jon sat with Sansa inside command tent lit by oil lamp. Maps before them. He traced route to Frostfangs where legend placed Night King's lair. Sansa wrote lists. Arrow counts, ration days, wounded tallies. She paused, ink dripping. "I once dreamed of southern balls," she said quietly. "Silk gowns, jests at tourneys. Tonight I catalogued pitch barrels and corpses." She smiled faintly. "Strangely, I feel more alive." Jon covered her ink-smudged fingers with his. The girl who dreamed is part of you. So is this woman, queen in all but crown. Neither alone can save us, but together. He kissed her knuckles. Outside, a single horn call. Crows returning from vantage. Arya slipped into tent, face grim. The Night King moves. He's split his host, half marches west along Icemark River, toward the abandoned Night Fort. Sansa's pulse raced. The wall's central segment had not been reforged. She rose. Bran foresaw this. Jon grabbed cloak. We divide as well. Daenerys and dragons fly to Westwatch to intercept. The ground host pushed through Shadow Valley. Arya unsheathed needle. And me. You strike where he least expects, Sansa answered. Follow his second line, cut command wights. Chaos buys us hours. Arya nodded, eyes gleaming predatory thrill. Jon pulled Sansa aside. War splits us again. She cupped his face. That is our fate, until war ends. Return to me. I will. They kissed. Fierce. Then parted. Dawn's first silver seep found them marching. Footsteps of thousands muffled by thick snow created a hush heavier than silence. Sansa rode behind Jon near front. Hair first time so close to open battle lines. She wore brigandine tailored to her frame, dyed stark gray, lined with white rabbit fur, sword at hip though she prayed never to draw. But she must show the North its true-faced queen, unbowed at conflict edge. They crossed Dead Man's Field, an expanse where ancient battle of free folk versus watch once raged. Broken spear points still jutted from drifts, earning name. Now they formed makeshift signposts, guiding living host deeper. Dragons soared overhead, tails flicking streaming clouds. Their shadows raced across throngs like omens of destiny. In evening hush, they reached Shadow Valley mouth. A flume of jagged shale overshadowed by basalt cliffs. Bran's messages claimed a heart glacier nested there. Unnatural ice fortress shaped by spell of first Night King. Scouts returned with eyes wide. They spoke of blue fires flickering within walls of ice, as though furnace of winter itself. Jon dismounted, studied silhouette against darkening sky. So it begins. Sansa's breath plumed. She thought of wolves curling around hearth at Winterfell, of weirwood faces, of her mother's laugh lost to river. All threads now knotted here. She turned to Jon. End this, or the world becomes a grave. He squeezed her hand, then looked forward where the Night King's fortress glowed. They advanced. The tale of that siege would fill tomes. Flaming volleys, dragons writhing through aurora storms, undead giants toppled by Valyrian steel, Bran warging ravens to blind other commanders, Arya infiltrating the frozen labyrinth to sever the Night King's thralls, Jaime losing Golden Hand to an ice bear but burning it as makeshift torch, Daenerys confronting the Night King in aerial duel, above shattering spire. But in the pivotal moment, as blue fires swirled to engulf Drogon, Sansa and Davos led a contingent through tunnel network, uncovered by Samwell's manuscripts. Deep in glacier core lay a heart crystal, pulsing azure light, shards humming. Sansa carried the hammer that rang the world. Guided by Bran's whisper through arcane weave, she struck that heart crystal once. The blow sang beyond hearing, resonating through glacier, through Night King's bones, through every wight. Walls cascaded into glass dust. On the spire above, Night King reeled. Daenerys' spear of dragonglass found his chest. Cracks splintered luminous. A howl of elder winter echoed once and ceased. The undead host collapsed like puppets with strings cut. Snow drifting where armies had stood. Silence rolled across Shadow Valley. Then cheers. Ragged. Incredulous. Jon found Sansa in the tunnel mouth, hammer smoking frost. He swept her up, though armor weighed heavy. She laughed jagged tears. Davos leaned against wall, whispering blessings to any god who would listen. Dragons circled overhead, crying triumph. Dawn rose peach across horizon. It touched not wights but living faces streaked with ash and tears. Ghost, scarred but alive, paced around piles of fallen ice wights sniffing, verifying death final. And so the war ended, not with one hero's blade alone, but with marriage vow forged of wolf and wolf. With dragon fire tempered by northern resolve, with sisters and brothers and unlikely lions rallied. The living gathered upon ridge, looked south where snows parted. A sunrise shimmered upon a world reborn, no longer hiding under omen of endless night. Months later at Winterfell, weirwood leaves red as setting sun drifted over courtyard. Sansa walked with Jon along parapet where they had once first discussed the coming storm. Now the air smelled spring sweet. Below, children chased each other. Wildling and Northern, Reachman and Mountain Clan, no longer any barrier but laughter. Armorers turned dragonglass into plowshares. Maesters measured melt lines along the wall. Breaches now sealed by obsidian fused. Some argued keep a section open to trade with free folk, who chose to settle farmland north of Gip. Jon paused beneath a banner, direwolf entwined with a dragon, but the dragon's wings gilded with snow dust white. The council expects we journey south for great moot, he said, to discuss realm's fate. Sansa's gaze followed swallow arcs overhead. And our fate? He smiled softly. I think the north will remain its own kingdom, allied to realm south, but beholden to none. The south will not like that. She arched brow. No, he allowed. But they will understand respect. We fought as equals. She took his hand. Then let us travel. Speak peace into existence. Ghost padded up, tail wagging sluggish, the deep scar ridging his flank a testament. Jon knelt, stroked his muzzle. Ready, old friend? Another road. The direwolf huffed. From distant mews, dragons' roars echoed. Daenerys and Tyrion visiting, negotiating trade routes, forging new path of ice and fire. Arya prepared to sail west of Westeros, curiosity unsated. Bran remained in Godswood, eyes closed, weaving futures. Sansa looked west where sun dipped. A cool breeze lifted her hair. It smelled of apples and forge smoke. She thought of nights under winter stars, when hope felt as brittle as frozen reeds. Then of this day, warm on her cheeks. We were children once. She whispered. Jon's hand tightened. But now we are the season change, he answered. Winter to spring. Together they descended stone steps to courtyard. The bells of Winterfell rang. Some said for a wedding renewed. Others said to mark dawn of peace. In truth they rang simply because they could, because the hands ringing them were alive to feel rope fibers and hear metal peel over ramparts into clear bright air where birds circled free, singing over a kingdom reborn from frost and fire alike, and over two Starks whose vows had, against all fear, shepherded the living into dawn's tender light. Yow, ni, ah. The high summer sun hung above Winterfell like a glowing coin, gilding every slate roof and tower spire. But heat here never truly conquered the north. It only coaxed the chill to slink beneath stairwells and cellar doors, lying in wait for nightfall. Jon Snow, still unaccustomed to wearing anything lighter than boiled leather, stood on the battlements overlooking the Godswood and tried to recall how warmth once felt south of the neck. Below, masons laid fresh-cut blocks along the curtain wall's inner skirt, stones quarried from Moat Cailin, hauled north on barges that now doubled as grain scows. Sparks rained from makeshift forges, where smiths who once shaped dragonglass arrowheads hammered plowshares, sickles, and hinges. Ghost limped beside Jon's boots, ears twitching whenever a hammer rang. The direwolf no longer bled, but the long scar running from shoulder to haunch bore reminder that even legions could break. A door clattered open behind. Sansa emerged, her hair bound in a simple twist permitted in the mellow heat. She carried parchment rolls that smelled of sea salt and cedar resin, their outer leaves stamped with the crowned seahorse of House Velaryon. Letters from Driftmark had grown frequent. Lord Corley saw new trade lanes slicing straight up the narrow sea, nets fat with cod, and holds bursting with stepstone saffron. The north might yet taste spices older than Valyria. He wants to anchor silver ships at White Harbor all winter, she said, leaning on the embrasure beside Jon. Claims manderly taxes less than Bravos. I suspect he smells profit in rebuilding. Jon traced a distant sail glimmering on the horizon, merchantmen already in the bight. Trade means prosperity, but coin means intrigue. The more gold flows, the more knives hide under cloaks. Now. Then we sharpen ours first, she answered, rolling the parchment back. We also need coin. Re-raising the Night's Watch will be dear, building new blockhouses along the Shadow Valley dearer. If Lord Corlys brings riches, best we shape the ledger before a queen in King's Landing does. He nodded. As king in the north, and by mutual consent of great houses, protector of the true wall, Jon had discovered war's easy clarity yields to governance's tangle of quills, tariffs and vassal petitions. Sansa shouldered much of that weight, yet he still felt every seal pressed into warm wax. Ruling was another battle, but at least in peace, victory came without burying friends. Wind tousled Sansa's hair across her lips. She brushed it back. Bran requests our presence at dusk. Something about a gathering of crows. He sounded distant. Jon frowned. More distant than usual? He spoke of broken wings mending themselves. Her brow furrowed. Cryptic even for him. Jon glanced at the weirwood's red canopy swaying beneath them. Since the Night King's fall, Bran's visions had eased, but never ended. He often vanished into his chamber for hours, pupils glazed black, seeing futures that made his skin clammy. When he summoned them nowadays, it meant the world's loom had begun spinning new, dangerous threads. Dusk then, Jon agreed. He clasped Sansa's hand. Warmth there, at least, felt certain. In the afternoon they convened where Winterfell's east stables once stood. The building had been razed during the Bolton siege. Now its courtyard served as open forum for small folk. A wooden dais stood at one end, carved with direwolf sigil newly inlaid by Barrington carpenters. Against the dais rail, Maester Walken unfurled pristine parchment. He raised his voice over the rumble of conversation. By decree of his grace, Jon of House Stark, and her grace Sansa of House Stark, Queen Consort and Lady of Winterfell, the following proclamations shall bind. First, land grants beyond Carrow Wood ceded for free folk homesteads. Second, tax remission for farmers who quarter orphaned war children. Third, command of the rebuilt Eastwatch garrison falls to Lady Lyanna Mormont until the Night's Watch charter is reaffirmed at the coming Winter Council. Jon watched reactions ripple through the crowd. Surprise at free folk rights, cautious nods from tenant farmers, proud cheers from Bear Island retainers. Change intimidated, but it also promised relief after years of swords. Arya lounged atop a half-finished timber frame at the rear, boot heels swinging carefree. She winked at Jon. Each decree here meant fewer fists would swing come the next lean season. As the crier finished, a lanky Riverlands messenger edged forward, cloak still spattered with horse sweat. Letters from River Run, your graces, he reported. Lord Edmure begs safe road north. His harvest stored, but Lannister sellswards prowl the twins once more. Sansa accepted scrolls, heart tightening. Though allied armies had shattered the Night King, the political map still bled. Cersei's withdrawal north had not been pure surrender. Many Lannister captains refused Jaime's armistice and now skulked along the Trident, living by levy and terror. Winter could not fully thaw until those pockets of steel were doused. We'll send ravens, Sansa assured. But Joan's eyes had already tracked Arya. She stood, mirrored his thought. Silent blades might mend what words could not. She disappeared behind hangings, no doubt hunting a fresh horse. Twilight painted the yard violet when Jon and Sansa climbed the winding stair to the rookery's loft. Bran waited in a wicker chair facing sunset. Ravens perched along beams above, silent, as though their cause might break fragile visions still coalescing inside their lord. His milky gaze shifted to them and warmed a notch. I saw wings, he whispered. Not ravens, not dragons, something between. Sansa knelt by his side. Tell us. Bran's fingers twitched. East of the Bone Mountains, where Valyria's ash dunes mirror frozen wastes, a phoenix long dormant stirs. Fire of life after death. Its smoke will drift west on high currents until it reaches Dragonstone. Jon stood still. A phoenix. Myth. Yet real enough to threaten balance. Its life fire mends what man deems broken. Bones. Flesh. Barriers. Bran's voice faltered. Should fire of rebirth touch the wall, the ice spells we wove may unbind. Sansa recalled the hammer strike. That reforged bond had cost her nightmares. How far? How soon? Bran's breath fogged in warm room. Seasons, maybe 2. But those who covet immortality will hunt it sooner. Alchemists of Lys, red priests, kings who wear gold lions. Cersei dit aught. Jon tightened fists. If Lannister agents seize such creature, they might bargain to reignite dragons of their own. No, Bran corrected gently. They might bargain to resurrect empires. Ravens stirred. Bran's brief lucidity faded. Eyelids fluttered, spirits sliding back into unfathomable flight. Jon and Sansa exchanged looks under candle glow. The war for survival had ended, but the world refused quiet. A single bird made of flame could unravel the fragile peace. A week later, Winterfell's courtyard welcomed unexpected guests. Sir Jaime Lannister, his hair now streaked with more gray than gold, arrived astride a roan mare, flanked by 2 honor guards wearing the crimson sun of House Dalt, Dornish envoys. The Lannister lion beside a Dornish son had seemed impossible 2 years prior. War's realignment bred new beasts. Jaime dismounted awkwardly, golden hand clinking. Jon remembered the man's valor at Shadow Valley, where he had lost that same hand for a second time. This new gilded replacement forged by Gendry now bore a wolf's head at the wrist joint, honoring the North smithwork. They met in the Great Hall while summer thunder threatened beyond stone walls. Jaime bowed to Sansa with earnest respect. He had once kept her alive in King's Landing more by omission than action, yet guilt still shaded his blue eyes. "I come seeking guarantees," he began. "Cersei's power wanes. She sits the throne, but Lords Tyrell reborn in Old Town, and Arbor choose new rose banners. The Stormlands declare neutrality, yet mercenaries raid the Trident wearing my father's colors." Jon poured watered wine. "What do you propose?" "A conclave at Harrenhal," Jaime answered. "Neutral, ruined, feared. There, the surviving great houses may forge charter to replace the Iron Throne. An accord of realms. Each kingdom chooses its own governor, bound in league for trade and defense only. No absolute monarch ever again." None. Sansa's heart stirred. She had tasted kings. Joffrey's cruelty, Tommen's naivete, Cersei's ruthlessness. A confederacy might spare the realm perpetual tyranny. But trust in Lannister's sown seeds came grudging. "The North just gained independence," she warned. "We won't yield sovereignty to councils dominated by Southern coin." Jaime lifted his iron brow. "Nor should you. Each realm's vote weighs equal. Lion no heavier than wolf." He produced sealed scrolls bearing the Kraken, Rose and Spear. "Dorne, the Reach, the Iron Islands. They tentatively agree. Cersei refuses, but with others united, shall face choice. Join or fade. I ask the North to come." Jon considered Bran's omen, Firebird threatening older spells. A council of realms might unify them in facing whatever new magic, sword over bones and oceans. Yet leaving Winterfell now risked interior borders. Ex-white remnants still roamed ice flats, Night's Watch not yet reformed. Sansa spoke. "We cannot both travel. One Stark must govern the wall." Jaime nodded. "The council expects your voice, Lady Stark. War taught them queens often see clearer than kings." Jon met Sansa's gaze. The same question hung. Would she leave Winterfell again? She had journeyed to Eastwatch, struck the hammer, nearly perished. Yet her voice might shape history. "I will ride," she decided, slow but firm. "With guards I trust, and with Bran. His counsel may forestall folly. Then I stay," Jon resolved, "to raise the watch anew." He placed his wolf-handled sword onto the map table. "Lyanna Mormont will keep Eastwatch until my men relieve her. Wildling Rangers will scout Phoenix rumors beyond Frostfangs. Ghost whined approval, then collapsed onto flagstones. Still healing, but loyal. Jaime exhaled relief. We depart within a fortnight. The river roads grow dangerous. Sansa extended hand. Jaime clasped, his metal fingers cold. Pact sealed, once unthinkable. That night, Jon and Sansa lay beneath firs in their solar, while storm rain drummed slate roof. Lightning blue illuminated her freckled cheek. Thunder rolled like war drums. "I fear leaving you," Sansa whispered. "I fear for you more," Jon answered, tucking stray copper hair behind her ear. "But Harrenhal may echo with voices that decide whether free folk or freed slaves breathe come next century. Your voice matters. We swore never again apart. We'll honor in soul if not in miles. Let hers ride swift." She pressed palm to his chest. Heart beat sure. "Then promise no phoenix or ghost or Southron scheme will keep us separated beyond first snowfall." He kissed the space above her pulse. "I promise." Lightning flashed again. In that white snapshot they saw each other anew. Forged by winter, tempered by fire, bound by vows of necessity and love both. Preparations consumed days. Gendry oversaw wagon for Bran's weirwood throne, fitted with shock-dampening axles. Maester Walken brewed Frostmoss tonic to ease Bran's frequent trances. Arya returned just in time. Saddle dusty, eyes alight. Frey scouts scattered. Left them hugging trees near Fairmarket. Alive, missing coin purses? She grinned fox sharp. Trident should be safe enough. Sansa hid smile. "Escort us to Harrenhal then?" Arya shrugged. "If you fancy ghost stories in burnt towers, might improve my repertoire." Bran's ravens took wing ahead, carrying courtesy letters to every keep en route. Riverrun, Seaguard, Lord Harroway's town. Ravens flew heavy these days, but trust was lighter for it. On departure dawn, banners snapped under crisp breeze. Flayed Man Pink now replaced by Wool White Direwolf across Crimson Field. The Bolton's cloth repurposed to remind that cruelty can itself be flayed and turned. Jon hugged Sansa amid retinue bustle. Ghost nosed her palm, protective. Arya mounted slender gray courser, throne cloak fluttering like silent wings. Bran's pallet sleigh creaked behind, pushed by Podrick who had volunteered after knighthood at the wall. Jon spoke last words. "Tell Harrenhal the North stands, even when distant." Sansa answered, "And tell the North its heart rides with you." She climbed Baymare, lifted gloved hand. Rain-cleansed sun shone bright. Gate yawned. Company trotted out, dust swirling into golden motes. Jon watched until they vanished beyond ridge of gorse. Then he turned to castle tasks, but his spirit rode with them, each hoofbeat echoing worry. The King's Road south looked eerily reborn. Burnt manses cleared, new waystones bearing both crown stag and direwolf, carved by artisans from Storm's End. Peasants tilled fields where Lannister foragers once stole grain. Yet charred villages still dotted horizon, monuments to years of wrath. Sansa's column offered medical poultices and barley seeded at each hamlet. Word of Stark generosity spread quick. At night they camped beneath twin heart oaks, or in ruined inns. Arya ranged perimeter, slipping between tents like friendly shadow. Bran's dreams worsened as they drew nearer Harrenhal. He muttered in sleep about ironwork that bled wildfire, about storms that never ended within those melted towers. Sansa sat beside him after dawns, coaxing him to eat stewed plums. He would meet leech priests, schemers and banners of many stripes. His calm foresight was needed, but she feared each vision drained him like leech draws blood. At Maidenpool, they crossed paths with Prince Trystane Martell, gaunt from northern chill, but eyes bright with political hunger. He escorted a small retinue of Sunspear diplomats. Over mulled orange wine he confided to Sansa that Dorne would never again bow to a single iron throne. Independence tasted of warm desert wind. Sansa toasted to that and thought of phoenix flames melting frozen spells. Unity through balance, not domination. Harrenhal rose through morning fog like a corpse of a dragon devouring its own tail. Melted stone towers contorted, jagged silhouettes clawing sky. Glass-smooth curtain walls shimmered with millions of hairline cracks where dragonfire had fused, shaping stone like candle wax. The ruined scale awed still. It could swallow Winterfell thrice over. Sparrows chirped inside arrow slits, where archers once poured murder. Merchant stalls had sprung around Outer Bailey, selling sweet wine, boiled crab, even carved souvenirs shaped like melted gargoyles. War prophets always followed new councils. Inside the gods' harrowed yard, tents bloomed in riot of colors. Red apple of Fossaway, green fritty Frey, silver eel of Derry, kraken of Pike, white sun over spear of Martell, silver horse of Dothraki Khalazar, a small envoy invited by Daenerys. At central tent line, the three-headed dragon of Targaryen flew beside Gold Lion quartered with crimson rose, sigils of Queen Daenerys and Lord Paramount Jaime, convening joint stewardship until charter ratified. Nearby the direwolf banner snapped crisp, sentinels of House Stark. People gathered to gawk at Bran's weirwood carriage. Some crossed themselves seeing Hearttree Wood far from north. The first session convened in Harrenhal's Hall of 100 Hearths, now windowless, but torchlight illuminated molten walls like copper veins. Sansa sat on high chair carved from ash, Bran's wheeled throne to her right, Arya behind. Across semicircled dais, Daenerys in black and silver, Tyrion at her elbow, Jaime representing Westerlands, Garland Tyrell for Reach, Yara Greyjoy for Islands, Prince Trystane for Dorne, Lady Lyanna Mormont representing Northern March. She had ridden hard after handing Eastwatch to Jon's men. And unexpected faces. Lord Glover, Davos, Jones. Opening hours past trading titles. Freed City of Winterfell, Principality of Dorne, Confederation of Rainwood, League of the Lily. Monikers swirling like midges. Sansa listened, speaking only to anchored debates before they drifted into petty scoring. When Vailman argued flightless eagles still soared higher than seahorses. She raised a single brow. Cacophony died. Tyrion rose. "Shall we chase feathers or forge iron?" he asked. He produced parchment. The Charter of Harrenhal. 7 realms, 7 votes. If disagreements stalemate, a panel of maesters shall arbitrate. A murmur. The Iron Islands balked at maester oversight. Dothraki envoy laughed that scribes commanded nothing but night soil. Garland Tyrell insisted charters needed ink of royal tradition. Yara suggested Kraken blood instead. Sansa sighed inwardly. This would take moons. During recess she explored Outer Bailey, followed by Arya. The ruins' raw beauty tugged at Sansa. The melted spiral stairs, the reflection pools where stone had flowed like water. She remembered being hostage here once under Littlefinger's watch. She had nearly lost hope inside these blistering walls. Yet now she walked free, voice strong enough to bend ear of Dragon Queen. Near a collapsed forge arch, a Lyseni alchemist extolled amber vials to thronging sellswards. Elixir of resurrection, powder of phoenix feather rumored east of Korth. A single dram, and wounds knit like maiden's hymen. He saw Sansa's stare, bowed low, offered sample. She waved off. Bran's prophecy stirred. Phoenix feather talk this far west meant word flew faster than ravens. She purchased vial nonetheless. Evidence for Jon. That night, lightning spidered overhead, rain sluicing down towers. Torches hissed. Sansa returned to hall for smaller council. Daenerys, Tyrion, Jaime, Yara, Trystane. They argued trade corridors, coin ratios, but tension simmered beneath surfaces. Dragon Queen wary of losing sovereignty, Lannister wary of being scapegoat, Ironborn wary of losing writing rights. Sansa spoke. Power balance by necessity keeps peace. My father taught that a man who passes sentence should swing sword. This charter must ensure each realm swings its own sword, but binds sheath by council oath. If one realm breaks oath, others stand united. Yara snorted. Easy for wolves. You hold ice wall and free folk foot soldiers. Daenerys offered mild smile. And Krakens hold seas that starve half kingdoms if blockaded. Tyrion hammered goblet base on table. Balance of threat is still threat. We need mutual boon. Something to lose if war returns. Bran's voice drifted from shadow. Life itself. They turned. He wheeled from darkness like ghost. Ravens perched on melted windows beyond. Phoenix fire can heal or destroy. United, we guard it. Divided, we chase it to doom. Silence followed. Raindrops ticked across broken roof plates like coins on tombstone. Daenerys' violet eyes glinted. If such creature exists, its capture must be impartial. She looked to Sansa. Would North share custody? Sansa weighed. If custody is truly shared, one rookery in each realm receives a phoenix plume to study, guarded by rotating watch sworn to charter, not realm. Jaime nodded. A vow of crows. He smiled wry. I've worn black before. Perhaps I'll wear it again in old age. Agreement fragile but forming. They drafted Phoenix Compact. Should Phoenix appear on Westerosi soil, charter delegates form single neutral escort to safeguard. No realm may hold entire creature or its offspring. Violation constitutes declaration of war from all signatories. It was parchment-thin defense, yet gave councils common cause. Weeks stretched into crisp late summer. Council hammered coinage system. Red wine galleys shipping grain north, while Bear Island timber flowed south. Harrenhal's Outer Bailey transformed to marketplace of ideas. Maesters lectured on irrigation. Qarth silk merchants traded for winter pelts. Dothraki gifted colt stock to Riverland breeders. Sansa walked nightly among cooking fires listening to languages swirl. Bravosi Giscari scroth from free folk. She felt like thread weaving tapestry broad as dawn. Yet rumors reached them. Cersei and Red keep stockpiled wildfire again. Gold Company remnants, fortified Crack Claw Point. Lyseni alchemists sought phoenix eggs along Shivering Sea. Calm perched on Blade Edge. Arya returned from stealth Rome. Saw a man in sellsword leathers meeting Lannister courier by the cook fires. Carried amethyst vials, smelled like fire milk. She squinted. He rides for King's Landing tonight. Sansa's spine tingled. She summoned Tyrion. The dwarf paled. Wildfire formula once included powdered dragon bone. Perhaps phoenix ash amplifies potency. He bit lip. If Cersei obtains both, she could build bombs no wall deflects. Decision formed swift. Dispatch intercept. Arya volunteered naturally. Jaime insisted accompany. My debt to realm, he said. Yara promised fast keelboat along God's Eye to outrun messenger. They departed under moon. Arya cloaked. Jaime dour. Sansa feared but let them go. Trust sharpened by necessity once more. Back north, Jon revived sworn brotherhood. Castle Black thrummed again. Horns sounded first day of autumn as rangers in mottled cloaks assembled. New recruits from Barrowton. Shadow Tower refugees, even a handful of unsullied seeking purpose beyond war. Jon knelt them at Weirwood Stump, recited oath. Night gathers, and now my watch begins. It shall not end until Confederate peace endures. He modified words, acknowledging new realm. They rose brothers and sisters, women allowed for first time openly. Lyanna Mormont, now Lord Commander of Eastwatch, pinned Black Branch badge on each. Ghost bounded along yard chasing ravens that Bran dispatched daily. One dawn delivered vile Sansa scent. Jon studied amber elixir glimmering like captured sunrise. He tasked Maester Aemon's successor, a shy girl from Valyria's refugee camp, to test sample. She declared compound inert. Cow's bile tinted with saffron. Fraud, but message clear. Markets already selling hope of Phoenix cure. Real creature would fetch kingdoms. Jon called council of his marshals. We must send ranging east of Shivering Sea, beyond lands seldom mapped. Tormund, newly styled Lord of the Thens, thumped chest. Free folk know old passes. We guide. Davos insisted accompany. His smuggling days made him adept navigating unknown coasts. Jon planned leave after first frost, but news from Harrenhal arrived. Charter near ratification, but House Bolton's last surviving son, nursed in Essos exile, hired unsullied deserters, to reclaim Dreadfort. Irony heavy. Jon must ride to fortify Last Hearth. Politics never ended. He missed Sansa fiercely. Her laughter over ledger misprints, her silent counsel at midnight. Letters helped but carried only fragments of voice. He longed for real warmth under wattle roof, not wind-bitten ramparts. One star-clear night, while Ghost dozed across hearth, Jon wrote, "My heart. Walls hold, but my dreams roam to you. Council's birth pains may wound, yet birth it will. If Phoenix truly crosses our skies, let us meet it together. Beyond lines, beyond crowns. Until then, I guard dawn." He sealed with wolf wax. Sighed, watched Raven disappear into aurora-tinged night. Back at Harrenhal, Sansa oversaw final charter revisions. They hammered clause making Phoenix custody, rotated by lunar cycle. Dorne offered to host first sight at Starfall, where desert winds discourage poachers. Winterfell second, Dragonstone third. Tyrell envoys crafted currency minted with dual sides, direwolf and dragon, to symbolize new union of extremes. Bran's trances softened. When awake he taught Dothraki scribes to weave patterns predicting seasonal drift. Ravenists thrived in melted ramparts. Their cries at dawn now signaled session start. One dawn Jaime and Arya returned. Jaime limped, armor scorched. Arya's sleeve stained but grin intact. "Intercept complete," she announced. She tossed pouch of vials, glass charred. "Courier feeds fish in God's eye now." Jaime bowed to Sansa Kai. "I prayed never kill another Lannister soldier, but his loyalty served only wildfire. I chose realm." He looked older, but lighter. By harvest moon, delegates signed charter of Harrenhal. Torches flared. Horns echoed across lake. Sansa pressed direwolf seal. Daenerys pressed dragon. Garland Tyrell rose seal of golden rose. Yara slashed quill across kraken with flourish. 7 signatures shone. When cheers faded, Sansa slipped outside onto causeway. Midnight lake mist swirling about Hemtyre. Bran rolled behind. He whispered, "Threads coil, but loom never rests." She exhaled. "I know. Phoenix nears, but union forged tonight may hold." Sansa stared east where dawn would break hours yet. "Whatever comes, we stand together." Ravens took flight, wings black against Star River. Somewhere beyond Grey Waste, a lone ember-winged bird launched into sky. Its heart beating flames older than men's despair. Air currents carried it west, its cry a promise of wound and wonder both. The world, stitched again yet still fragile, waited with held breath. But in Winterfell's Godswood, new shoots sprouted beneath red leaves. In King's Landing, wildfire vats cooled under new inspection. In Casterly's gold mines, miners heard echoes of dripping water, wealth replaced by quiet. And on Wall's towering crest, Jon Snow watched first snowflake of coming winter drift onto Gauntlet. It melted instantly. Peace's first miracle. He looked north where Aurora painted green ribbons above Frostfangs. He looked south where ravens flew carrying news of charter. He thought of a phoenix winging toward them all, and of Sansa riding home someday soon, carrying parchments of hope. He smiled. Small, sure. Night gathers, yes, but dawn gathers too. In realm forged by ice and fire and phoenix ash yet to fall. The story stretched forward, endless, unwritten, waiting for hearts brave enough to write each chapter with quill of mercy and blade of honor in equal measure. Ka. A low mist clung to the baked mud lanes of the Harrenhal encampment, silvering ropes, spear shafts and pennons, as though dawn had dragged its own spiderweb across every surface. Sansa rose before the camp bells, her hair smelling faintly of smoke from the night's watchfires, and stood outside her pavilion to breathe the cool August air. Above the smashed towers a morning star still hung, refusing to yield its vigil even as the horizon brightened. She felt the hush that comes in the moment between dreams and duties, the pause when nothing presses save the heartbeat in one's throat. And she used it, just for breath or two, to remember Winterfell. spruce branches crusted with rime, rain dripping from broken crenels, Joan's hand warming her fingertips as snowflakes found their dark lashes. The first trumpet slashed that quiet. It came from the quadrangle, where the Great Council would reconvene for the final article, ratification of coin, borders, and the Phoenix Compact. By habit her stomach tightened. The Council's earlier sessions had shown how quickly lords could trade courtesy for claw. Yet each dawn they gathered again, drawn by the same magnet, the realm's future. Threading her mantle, she stepped inside the pavilion and found Arya already awake, binding her hair with a strip of undyed linen so plain it might have been a sparrow's bandage. "You're restless," Arya said, reading her sister as ever. "Dream of home, or of lords bickering?" "Both. And of that bird Bran saw." Sansa rolled a parchment upon her travel desk. "Did the scouts return from Maidenpool?" "2 came back." Arya strapped needle across her back, unseen beneath the folds. "Saw nothing stranger than a glowmote swarm on the marsh. But Tristaina's men spotted fire ships off the southern cape. They fly no banners." Sansa exhaled. "Wildfire couriers." Cersei's guesswork moves faster than our riders. She sealed a fresh missive for Jon, though ravens would take longer now the air grew heavy with late summer storms. Outside, Podrick waited with Bran's chair ready, its wheels reinforced by forged iron from Gendry's smithy. Bran sat already within, still as memoried stone, but his gray eyes shimmered with returning lucidity. "The bird draws nearer," he told Sansa as she clasped the lapstrap across his waist. "I dreamt of rivers boiling when its shadow passed." She swallowed. "You think it will cross the continent?" "I think it seeks whatever calls it," Bran murmured, gaze drifting eastward beyond Harrenhal's ruin, beyond the Thingers, beyond even the Bone Mountains, as though bricks could not hinder his sight. And now so many voices shout its name that even an ancient flame cannot help but answer. They moved toward the quadrangle, its flagstone ring dark in the haze. Daenerys arrived from the opposite colonnade with Tyrion and Missandei beside her, silver hair braided tight in the Giscari fashion. Jaime and Brienne walked shoulder to shoulder, Lion and Sapphire still awkward in each other's shadow, yet comfortable in shared purpose. Garland Tyrell, cheeks round from the harvest feasts he hosted nightly, greeted them carrying sheaves of parchment heavy enough to anchor a longship. The session opened with Tyrion's humorless clack of a gavel carved from melted Harrenhal stone. Scrolls were passed referencing the draft currency, doubled-struck dirhams of copper for small folk. Wolves on one face, dragons on the other, rimmed by a circle of lotus petals to appease the reach. Exemptions for regional mints were argued in circles until Lyanna Mormont thumped a gauntlet on the plank table, hard enough to jolt inkpots. "Silver's silver, copper's copper," she growled. "And a farmer cares not whose mint stamps the bloody thing so long as his loaf costs the same in Maidenpool as in the gift." That ended debate. The Phoenix Compact proved rougher. Yara Greyjoy objected that her Ironborn, with fleets unmatched, deserved prime custodianship of the beast at sea, while Garland argued the Reach scholars had kept seeds and graft lore like priests tended souls. Prince Trystane smiled thinly and reminded them the snake's tooth bites last. Sansa listened, weighing words like coins, but spoke only when the circle began fracturing into jest and jibe. She rose. No gavel, no gauntlet, only voice. "We are 7 realms now, no one ascendant. Let the Phoenix travel none of them." Silence rippled outward. She paced, cloak whispering over scuffed stone. High in the narrow sea stands Dragonstone, rock of storms. Below its mountain is a labyrinth of glass and vent, neither city nor kingdom. Let our Phoenix Eyrie be there, a keep unto no crown, garrisoned by 10 sworn from each realm, rotated every new moon. We choose the first 10 by lot, and thereafter by order of arrival, so speed of aid decides not favor. Then? Tyrion tapped chin. A neutral rookery, elegant in theory. Yet who administers coin, food, scrolls? The maesters, Bran offered unexpectedly. Heads turned. He had not spoken in hours. The Citadel is sworn to knowledge, not banners. Let them build a hall within the Eyrie, call it the Ember Library. Their plumes may be studied beneath oaths sealing tongues and hands, as with the Valyrian steel forging secret murmurs. Sansa waited. Then Jaime spoke. A phoenix eyrie on Dragonstone suits me. Close enough to King's Landing for oversight yet unreachable without ships we now share. He looked toward Daenerys. Will the Queen of Dragons cede a finger of her isle to joint charge? Daenerys' violet eyes roved the ring. Garland's hopeful, Yara's wary, Tristana's speculative, Lyanna's blazing. She inclined head. Dragonstone protected whole realms from the dead. If its hearth must now protect life's flame, so be it. Thus articles sealed in near unanimous consent. Quills scratched. As midday bells tolled, maesters collected scrolls for wax seals. Delegates spilled into courtyards for crumbly oat loaves and onion broth. Sansa stepped out beneath a sky rippled with mare's tail clouds, the sort that foretold storms riding high winds. Bran's ravens wheeled overhead, restless. Arya found her leaning against a half-toppled gargoyle. "Riders from East Gate," she said low. "Merchant wagons burned outside the hallway last night. Green fire, no survivors." She held out a blackened coin fused to char. Lannister lion half melted into an unrecognizable blob. Wildfires moving quick. Sansa's goot chilled. "Send ravens to Jon at Castle Black and to Greywater." Arya nodded and vanished. Jaime joined then, wiping soot from gauntlet. "That coin you hold. My sister's signet. She means to frighten, not yet to wage open war." "Frighten whom? Us?" Sansa tossed the slag to the earth. "Her fire won't slow our counsel." Jaime's gaze drifted to Daenerys across the yard, where the Queen spoke with Tyrion. "Perhaps not. But wildfire in wrong cargo hold could ignite Phoenix Eyrie before it is raised. Then we build faster." She turned to fetch Gendry. Jaime's iron footsteps hesitated. "I choose realm," he said to her back, half-whisper. She paused long enough to nod. A fortnight later, the charter signed. Sansa prepared to ride north with Bran, Arya, Podrick, and a dozen green-clad sentinels under the direwolf sun flag. Gendry remained, forging Aerys' first obsidian tiles. Tyrion rode east to secure master fleets. Daenerys sailed to Dragonstone with Unsullied. Jaime and Brienne would escort Dorne's retinue south, hoping their presence pacified Stormland's bandits. Before dawn on departure day, Sansa entered Harrenhal's God's Eye Chapel. Narrow but intact, its melted roof offering view of stars. There Davos knelt before a flickering candle shaped like an hourglass. "Old smuggler's prayer," he explained when she approached. "Time's sands pour quick since that bird appeared." Sansa knelt too, though prayer had rarely visited her lips beyond the old god's still-face worship. She lit a second candle and whispered thanks. For Jon still breathing, for Bran's mind still fighting, for realms stitched if loosely. Davos stood. "Your grace, a thing you should see." He led her out through the arch to an overgrown cistern fed by springs. Water there flushed bright turquoise, a striking contrast to mud-brown eddies nearer banks. Steam twirled, not from sun but inner heat. At the center, a single feather bobbed on ripples. Long as her forearm, iridescent red at base, orange mid-shaft, yellow-white tip, like an ember's cusp. It glowed faintly, even as early light crept across the water. It drifted in after midnight. Davos murmured. No beast near. It did not burn the water, only warmed it. Then no winder. Sansa reached but paused, remembering Bran's warnings. She pulled a strip of coarse linen from her belt, scooped the feather gently. It weighed less than sparrow's bones, yet heat pulsed like a living heartbeat. Her breath caught. Proof of arrival. Davos crossed arms, jaw tense. If one feather can warm a pool, imagine 10 in wildfire barrels. A raven shrieked above. Sansa nodded grimly, wrapped feather and slid bundle into a brass tube sealed by cork. No one sees this but Jon and the Ember Library. She tucked the tube inside her cloak's inner pocket, near her heart, the warmth seeping through fabric like comforting sun. Their homeward column skirted north flank of the God's Eye, following the Willow's Way. an old road half reclaimed by cattails. 3 days brought them to the ruins of salt pans, where orphaned children scavenged among sunken docks. Sansa ordered supplies distributed. Sacks of oats, linen scraps, a single goat from their drove. Podrick strung a small harp and played a gentle song he'd learned from Brienne. For a moment, the shore echoed with laughter rather than gull cries. Arya slipped away as always, her gifts best served beyond lamplight, and returned at moonrise with pockets of copper dirhams, lost by pirates washed ashore. Bad for them, good for brood, she quipped, tossing coins to children. Ahead on the green ridge, Bran stirred. Storm behind, he murmured. Sansa looked over shoulder. No clouds, but she trusted. They pressed on faster. By dusk on the 5th day, thunderheads bloomed monstrous over the trident's mouth, veins of lightning flashing purple-white. Rain hammered soon after, turning track to soup. Guards raised canvas screens. Podrick and Arya erected a lean-to above Bran. The thunder never ceased, but lightning seldom touched earth, dancing instead across cloud royals like serpents of fire. Somewhere high inside those clouds, perhaps, the phoenix soared. Sansa imagined molten wings beating thunder into shape. On the 7th day, they reached the twins. Lord Walder's bones lay moldering. They'd been exhumed and burned during the wars. Now Sir Merritt Frey, far meeker than his father, knelt in muddy gate court to receive Sansa. He pledged provisions for their final leg and apologized, truly, it seemed, for old sins. Sansa accepted, though Arya glared. Night inside the guest keep dripped with drizzle through unrepaired roof holes. Sansa lay awake, listening to the flick-flick of water into buckets. Bran, across the chamber, exhaled ragged sighs, eyelids fluttering in half-dream. She approached. "Wings," he whispered, "but not flame. Ice this time." He gripped her wrist, sudden strength. "Tell Jon, 2 birds. 1 life, 1 death. They circle each other." She hushed him, smoothing sweat-damp hair. But dread prickled. An icebird counterpart to Phoenix? Could fragments of Night King's sorcery, lost in distant wastes, coalesce into new threat? Crossing the Green Fork, they encountered the first company of Night's Watch levies headed south recruiting. Black cloaks still crisp, they hailed Lady Stark with oaths. Their captain, a tall Lyseni named Darius, bore a raven letter from Jon. Eastwatch stable, last hearth secure. Wildling rangers spotted peculiar lights in far northeast skies. Jon marched soon to Hardhome again, this time to escort Maesters studying thawed ice crypts. He ended with, "Come home soon. Ghost howls at gate nightly." Sansa pressed the note to her lips, then slid it inside cloak beside Phoenix Feather, Heat and Heart. At White Harbor, sailors spoke of Maester fleets already building stone cradles on Dragonstone's western slope. Ember Library foundations. They bragged of new coin minted with wolf dragon visage. Sansa tried paying with one and found barn merchants accepted gladly. Lord Wyman, cheeks rosy from Tidehouse feasts, greeted her with a sea-forged crown of seashells. He escorted their column through the wolf's den, where prisoners once rotted. Now it rang with smiths forging anchor chains for airy docks. Ravens flew ahead to Winterfell. When Sansa's party finally sighted its gray battlements, August against an autumn sky blooming with red leaves, they found fires blazing in welcome, direwolf banners alongside Black Knight's watch pennant. Jon awaited in yard, ghost at heel, cloak soaked from an earlier drizzle. His gaze locked on Sansa before her horse halted. A grin broke his war lines. She dismounted, nearly stumbled as feeling rushed from saddle-numb legs. Jon caught her, arms strong. Dampness of cloak seeped through her tunic, but she laughed, not caring. Bran wheeled near, Podrick wiping eyes. Arya leaned against broken column, arms crossed. Smile small and satisfied. Jon kissed Sansa's brow. Charter stands. Signed by 7. She pressed brass tube to his palm. And proof the phoenix nears. He unstoppered cork. Heat radiated faintly, even in crisp dusk. Feathers glow, painted amber arcs across his cheekbones. Old gods, he breathed. Bran's dream, alive. They gathered in the great hall that night. Maester Walken examined Feather under smoky torch. Heat never faded. Dragonglass shards near it softened as wax. Gendry, just returned from Dragonstone, marveled. Forge could meld ice and steel with that. Jon set Feather in a crystal reliquary. We leave for Dragonstone with it, once harvest is stored, he declared to assembled lords, Manderly, Karstark, Glover. We'll arm Merry and maesters with knowledge before wildfire thieves claim more. Yet worry lines bracketed his eyes. Bran foresaw a second bird. Sansa recounted Bran's fever whisper. Maesters muttered of Skagos myths. Frostfire ravens once bred by first men warlocks. Stories claimed they leached heat instead of giving it. Night's Watch couriers produced fresh reports. Beyond the shivering sea in the bleaching ice fields of Ibn, whalers had vanished, their vessels found crusted with rime, though seas remained unfrozen. Like winter draft from sky, one letter said. Jon tapped map. If Frostbird exists, it drifts east-north toward Ibn. Tormund's free folk willing to scout, but will need ships. Lord Wyman offered his fattest hauliers. Davos smirked. I'll steer. Plans formed. 2 expeditions. South to Dragonstone with Feather. East-north to Ibn seeking Ice Shadow. Sansa insisted join South mission. Jon required remain in North. Debate wound under rafters until Bran's voice, thin, tremulous, cut. Life and death birds converge at shadow of the maiden, above Skagos. He blinked as though tunnels of time receded. Maesters gasped. Jon traced finger to Skagos on map, triangle island of cliffs. East of Winterfell by narrow sea strait, reachable in 3 days' sail from White Harbor. Then we meet them both, he said. Ghost barked once, low and urgent. Within a fortnight, a fleet sailed. Wyman's silver-prowed mermaid, Davos' old black Betha refurbished. Yara's longship Seastone Vixen anchored from the west coast. Gendry's forge barge Clarion carrying smelters to study Feather's heat. Jon paced Mermaid's quarterdeck beside Sansa, both cloaked in gray. Spindrift foamed under hull. Gulls cried. Ghost stood at prow, nose to wind. Bran remained below in cabin lined with pine boughs. He seldom spoke, conserving strength. Arya chose Vixen, delighting in rigging acrobatics that unnerved Ironborn. Podrick remained Winterfell steward with Lyanna Mormont. The fleet hugged coast, past cliffs where seals barked on wave-washed ledges. On second night, a crimson comet streaked overhead. Omen, according to sailors. Some whispered Phoenix, but it faded cold. Morning of the third day revealed Skagos, jagged basalt horns thrusting from slate sea. Peaks dusted by early snows. Fog bank hid lower slopes. Sharp-eyed Yara guided fleet into a cove rarely sound. Harbor dotted with half-sunk longships from raiding days. Shore smelled of peat smoke, though no fires visible. Davos anchored Betha. Landing boat slid onto gravel beach. Gendry's barge pumped air into bellows heating iron crucible until it glowed cherry. Feather placed inside, they aimed to test how much heat output. Jon, Sansa, Ghost, Yara, Arya, and 20 freefolk scouts armed with dragonglass ascended Goat Path into pine stands twisted by constant gales. Cloud ceiling sagged heavy. Icicles clung to branches, though temperature mild. Bran's omen? They found village ruins charred black. Stone hearths cracked outward as though burst by inner frost. No bodies. Tracks of goat and possibly polar bear mingle. Freefolk Chief Torrell knelt, prodded ground. Ice crept here sudden. Sea roots burst. He flicked chunk of earth. Still frozen. Wind gusted, carrying faint cord. A distant screech, neither gull nor hawk. They climbed ridge. There, at Cliff Plateau, lay crater of glazed rock, 50 paces wide. Its center smoked faint frost vapor swirling inward, not up. A feather, gigantic, 5 men long, lay embedded point down, black-white mottled, rimed by ice crystals that grew and sublimated constantly. Where phoenix plume radiated warmth, this radiated hunger. Air chilled to breath mist. Arya whispered, "Frostfire Raven." She raised needle but lowered again. No creature present. Behind them, sky flared amber. Down at Cove, Gendry's forge vented flame higher than masts. Phoenix feather saturating furnace, heat blossoming uncontrolled. Sailors scrambled, buckets useless, yet forge crew cheered. They had discovered infinite heat source. Simultaneously, Frost Crater roared low, pulling warmth. Gusts whipped hair forward. Sansa shivered. She sensed invisible tether between two feathers, one hot south of ridge, one cold at heart of island. As heat peaked below, frost vacuum intensified. Bran arrived, pushed by two free folk. His eyes glazed white. "They wake," he murmured. Opposite wings beating same air. Jon drew Dawnfall. "We destroy Frost Feather, contain Phoenix." But Sansa laid hand on blade. "Destroy one half, unbalance other. We must bind them, not sever." Bran blinked. "Strike them together." "How?" Jon asked. Bran smiled faint. Steel forged of both extremes. Gendry had once spoken of folding Valyrian steel with dragon glass. Could such forge melt frost too? It might require bringing feathers near. Yara swore. "Move that monster quill." Ship rigging might manage. Wind howled stronger, as if Frost Crater inhaled. Sansa pictured forge plume below, heat hungry for release. Idea flashed. Converge furnace and crater by channeling energies through iron chain bridging ridge and cove. Like lightning rod grounding storm. Time short. Frost vacuum deepened. Nearby pines cracked under ice sheathing. Forge fire now risked consuming barge. Jon shouted orders. Free folk uncoiled anchor chains, lugged them uphill. Ironborn hauled forge bellows along track. Davos organized rope teams. Arya darted among men, spurring speed with jests sharper than needles. Gendry adjusted crucible dampers to blast heat forward. At crater rim, Jon and Sansa drove chain links into obsidian fissures with sledgehammers. Metal instantly frosted. At beach, links glowed red from furnace. Chain likely to snap under such contrast. But they had no alternative. Bran directed with eerie calm. "Join last link exactly midway when sun kisses sea." They glanced. Sun nearing horizon. Yara steered rowboat, carrying phoenix plume encased in iron tongs. Heat scorched oarlocks. Rowers sweated though cold wind cut. They reached ridge. Free folk handed frost feather. Numb gloves stiff. Jon lifted phoenix plume. The warmth healed frigid in hands. Steam hissed. Sansa lifted frost feather, pain like burning ice. They stepped towards each other, chain creaking behind. One half glowing red, one half cobalt. Sun rim met water. Their plumes touched. Flash of blinding white shot skyward. Thunderclap cracked like worlds shell splitting. Chain vaporized into mist. Rock underfoot melted, then refroze instantly into glassy amalgam. Both feathers fused, swirling into single shaft. Swirling flame and snow, colors merging into opalescent shimmer. Silence fell. Air warmed to spring breeze. Pines shed ice with gentle patter. Forge fire on barge dwindled to steady glow. Frost craters ceased, sucking heat. In their palms, fused feather shrank, coalescing to token no larger than sewing needle. Glimmering as if alive. Bran's voice carried, balance restored. Wing beats equal. Jon exhaled. "Now what?" Bran smiled faint. "Now we carry world's breath, not as weapon, but as seed. Plant in Dragonstone's heart. Let library guard both fire and frost." Sansa closed her fingers around token. It cooled to comfortable. She looked at Jon, and in his eyes found reflection of dawn's first star. Weeks later, Phoenix Library's vault opened for first time. Maesters placed fused token within crystal orb, suspended in iron lattice. Hot and cold pulses visible in swirling eddies. Parchments recorded the balance feather. Charter delegates returned to Dragonstone to witness. Cersei never came. Wildfire stockpiles mysteriously exploded beneath the Red Keep's lower vaults soon after, a rumor credited to sabotage, but some whispered Frostfeather's absence made Wildfire unstable. Queen died in collapse. Smallfolk crowned Jaime as regent until councils elected governors. He swore to Charter. Winterfell thrived in relative calm. Jon split time between wall and home. Night's Watch became Order of the Eclipse, symbol half sun half moon. One autumn dusk, Sansa walked Godswood while golden leaves drifted. She felt warmth and cool shimmer across her heart, where small feather token hung from silver chain. Jon joined, brushing red leaves from his cloak. Bran sent Raven. He saw no more wings, only fields green and gold. Peace? Sansa asked. For a season at least. He cupped her cheek. We earned it. She leaned to him. Then let's walk as ordinary folk till next winter. Ghost padded around them, sniffing air heavy with mulled cider from kitchen vents. Somewhere beyond walls, freefolk children laughed. Overhead, northern lights flickered faint rainbow, not fierce but playful. Up on Dragonstone's highest spire, Balance Feather pulsed in harmony, warming scrolls, cooling braziers, singing silent promise that opposites could coexist, ice and fire, wolf and dragon, death forgotten and life restored. The story of Jon and Sansa, king and queen of a realm joined not by borders but by equilibrium, would weave onward into ballads. Yet for now, as dusk settled sweet over Winterfell's towers, they simply held hands beneath weirwood leaves, content in present hush, trusting that should any shadow or ember rise again, they together would face it, as they always had, two halves of a single steadfast heart. A.K. Candida. The crack of oars framed the dawn as Skagosi longboats ferried the expedition back toward the waiting fleet. Pale light shimmered across the narrow sea, and the fused Balance Feather, now no larger than a knitting needle, hung from a braided silver chain at Sansa's throat. Even tucked inside her jerkin, she felt its twin pulses. One beat cool as moonlit snowdrifts, the other warm as glowing hearthwood. They rose and fell together, never out of time, never in conflict. Ghost lay across the bow, eyes half closed, muzzle testing the scent of coming weather. Behind him, Jon leaned on the rail beside Sansa, black curls whipping in sea wind. He watched deckhands hoist the now controlled Phoenix Forge, its crucible dormant and lashed with iron struts, to Clarion's broad barge. Steam had ceased gouting from its chimney. Gendry had quenched the reaction by lowering the Balance Feather for a heartbeat near the furnace mouth, letting the two extremes neutralize. The smith swore the feather's heat could still fire 10 forges at once, yet only when summoned by a ritual combination of coal, dragonglass, and seawater. Otherwise it slept. Arya balanced barefoot atop the mast spar of Seastone Vixen, arms outstretched, practicing a crane stance she claimed to have learned from a Braavosi acrobat. Every so often she cartwheeled, toes brushing rigging, just to see Yaris helmsman blanch. Bran sat cloaked in wolf pelt on the quarterdeck of Mermaid, eyes glazed. Behind those lids, he soared far beyond sails and salt, tracing currents that carried rumors of both death and life across distant shores. Jon tightened his fingers around Sansa's. 3 years ago I never imagined I'd treat sunrise sails as ordinary. He glanced aft, where Gendry's men hauled anchor chains coiled like ochre serpents. Next we'll probably tame krakens so Ironborn stop complaining. Sansa laughed, and the sound surprised her. It felt like thaw cracking river ice. If they ever learn to brew ale that doesn't taste like bilge, I'll believe anything is possible. His smile faded only slightly. Still, I fear our peace hangs by spider silk. Balance Feather or not, wildfire remnants simmer beneath King's Landing. Casterly's creditors sharpen quills, and beyond the sunset sea merchants whisper of Shadowglass returning. Peace was never meant to sleep, she answered. It walks. If we keep step, spider silk becomes woven rope. Then, Ghost pricked ears. On the horizon a gull shrieked. No great omen. Simply life crying mourning. Yet Bran's voice carried from deck astern, faint but urgent. A third wing stirs. They hurried aft. Bran's pupils had thinned to ice pinpricks. Across the summer sea, in jungles of Sothorios, a storm of locusts swarms above a river the world forgot. In its eye something bright, neither frost nor flame but hunger wearing flesh of light. Davos scratched beard. Sounds decidedly unpleasant. Bran blinked. Breath shivered. It feeds on memory. Where it passes. Stories end. No. Gendry muttered. A's, if we haven't enough beasts. Jon exhaled. Then, after Dragonstone, we sail south. Sansa placed calm hand on his forearm. We've scarcely delivered this feather to safekeeping. Must we chase every omen? An unguarded omen can become war. He squeezed her hand. But we'll weigh course once the library stands. 6 days later, the fleet angled around Massey's Hook and sighted Dragonstone's basalt crown knifing the haze. Smoke spiraled from Mount Dragontail. Sign of Daenerys returning dragons, kindling new forges in the castle belly. On the leeward side of the isle, unblemished ramparts of the half-built Ember Library rose. Pale stone quarried at Driftmark, mortared into towers shaped like upturned talons, each capped with open arches to vent heat. Cranes swung beams. Maesters in soot-splattered grays directed gangs of stonemasons while Unsullied stood watch. Drogon and Rhaegal swept overhead, their passage sending deck pennons snapping. Sansa felt the feather warm. Dragons recognized kin elementally. Dock planks creaked beneath boots as Jon's party disembarked. Missandei greeted them. Scrolls in hand. Behind, Tyrion approached. Chalk dust on doublet. Your timing is either cursed or blessed. Tyrion began, waving the group up the scoria ramp toward the library. Our masons uncovered an older vault while footing the foundation. Black stone door, draconic relief, melted seams. Our queen asked that we await your arrival. Sansa eyed the 3-story half-finished eyrie. The island never ceases to unveil secrets. Inside the Ember Library. Still mostly scaffold and torchlight. Heat pressed like midsummer. A central atrium had been cleared of rubble. There, amidst rubble and obsidian shards, crouched a squat doorway crusted with volcanic glass. Intricate reliefs depicted serpents devouring their tails, talons locked in eternal circles. The same symbol newly minted on charter coins. Daenerys waited beneath a rain of sparks from smiths installing braces. She nodded greeting, pale plat clinging to nape. It appears Aegon the Conqueror built deeper than Chronicles said. The vault can't be opened without something to quench a locking spell. We tried water, steel, dragonfire. All fail. Memendao. Jon stepped forward, feather hanging from his neck. Even through linen, distant pulses responded to stone. Perhaps it waits for balance. He removed. Chain. All eyes followed the needle-slim feather shimmering silver-blue amber. He lowered point to melted lockseen. Hiss like crushed snow and roaring forge simultaneous. Obsidian cracked, steam whistled. The door sagged inward. Beyond lay a round chamber of polished black marble. In center rested pedestal of fused obsidian and Valyrian steel. Surface etched with threads of gold forming patterns like constellations. On pedestal, a curved blade, no larger than a sickle, glowed faint cerulean. Tyrion's breath hitched. Another relic. Daenerys stepped near, but Bran murmured, "Memory Eater's bane." He rolled forward. The blade can cut not flesh, but shadow. Stories devoured may be freed by its edge. Sansa frowned. How do we know? Bran's lids fluttered. I saw maesters of the Golden Isles forging it during the Doom. Designed to sever roots of forgetting poisons unleashed by Volantis sorcerers. Never used, they perished first night, the sky bled. Jon examined blade. Metal seemed alive. Pattern-welded ripples sliding under torchlight. Steel for a third wing. He slid it into scabbard lined with wool. Daenerys gestured to feather. Place it in the vault. Pedestal grooves align. Sansa laid feather next to blade, but grooves accepted only feather. Obsidian edges folded like petals, sealing token beneath translucent crystal. Pedestal brightened then dulled, as if satisfied. The room's heat moderated, Tension eased. Tyrion exhaled. Dragonstone now houses balance. May it never tip. But Bran's voice again. Storm from south will test weight. A raven arrived 3 days after. Crack scribes from Old Town reported ships lost off summer sea to shimmering maelstrom. No wind but devouring luminous gale. Survivors spoke of a swirl of white moths that became serpent bird 30 yards long. Transparent, save for veins of starlight. Their minds fractured. Names forgotten. Shipmates unrecognizable. Council convened in Dragonstone's war room. Jon, Sansa, Daenerys, Tyrion, Davos, Yara, Gendry, Missandei, Lyanna Mormont, via Raven, Trystane via Mirror Scroll. Even Jaime recovering in King's Landing. Listen by Pewter Dreamhorn. Davos unfolded chart. Maelstrom sits near Basilisk Isles. Merchants avoid, but slavers frequent. If thing feed on memory, those crews make easy prey. Tyrion perched atop stool. Phoenix healed wounds. Frost feather chilled vengeance. Memory eater would erase identity. Triad of extremes. Life, death, oblivion. Daenerys rotated carved dragon on map. We can't allow oblivion to drift north. But our navy's small. Aerys still garrisoning. I can fly dragons south. Yet Drogon struggles in tropical thunderheads. Sansa proposed. Split mission again. Dragons to lure creature away from shipping lanes while fleet fetches survivors, gather knowledge. Perhaps blade severs its power. Jon gripped sickle hilt. Then blade must ride dragon back. Daenerys' eyes flashed but softened. You risked too much. So did you above Winterfell, he said, voice even. Balance demands equal stakes. Sansa clasped his hand but did not challenge. It was decided. Drogon bearing Jon and sickle. Rhaegal with Daenerys warding. Seastone Vixen carrying Gendry's forge to fashion containment runes on deck. Mermaid as rescue ship. Clarion loaded with maesters and ravens. Before sailing, Sansa withdrew with Bran to cliff's edge. Waves shattered basalt below. What part do I play now? She asked. Bran smiled faint. Realm's thread still needs weaver. Ember Library requires steward. Voice of charter amid storms. Stories will converge here. She nodded. Heart tugged at being shorebound while Jon flew to peril, but balance again. She would guard memory. Jon joined, dressed in black-silver leathers. He pressed brow to hers. If I forget myself, call me home. She slid ring from finger, a band forged of phoenix iron and frost filigree. Gift from Gendry. Return this intact. He pocketed ring over heart. Dragons launched at dawn. Their silhouettes carved arcs across rising sun. Sails blossomed below, and Dragonstone's new bell tower tolled, echoing across narrow sea like promise. The summer sea boiled with humidity, air thick enough to chew. Storm clouds towered, anvils lit by internal flickers. Drogon's wings hammered stratospheric currents, scales rippling heat. Jon crouched in harness, sickle strapped across his chest. Rhaegal followed, Daenerys a sleek silhouette. Late on third day they smelled ozone and salt sweetly rotted. Waves beneath churned, but there was no wind. Only stillness unnatural. Horizons warped like molten glass. Then came the murmur. A chorus of lost voices rising from sea surface, swirling around them. Jon tasted memory on tongue. Names flooding. Ygritte's laughter. Mester Aemon's warnings. Ed's sarcasm. Each flickering then receding as if tugged away. Ahead, sky tore open. A translucent leviathan spiraled up. A bird serpent indeed. Wings of refracted dawn. Body shifting through blues to ghostly gold. Not matter, but condensation of memory fragments. Faces, sigils, lullabies swirling beneath its hide. Dragonfire erupted. Drogon's red torrent, Rhaegal's green. But conflagrations dipped into creature's body like torches through river mist. It pulsed, absorbing flame, and voices inside changed. Jon heard free folk war chants replaced by high Valyrian nursery rhyme. Then empty silence. With each stolen memory, the creature grew brighter. On Vixen below, Yara directed ballistas lined with obsidian runes forged by Gendry. They loosed spears trailing silver chains. A spear pierced the creature's wing, light flared. Spear liquefied, yet chain anchored a corridor of shimmer linking deck to sky. Jon drew sickle. Drogon dove. Creature's eyes, points of swirling void, latched to him. Jon felt names of Stark ancestors peel away like orchard bark. He clung to center. Sansa. He swung. Blade met light. Silent flash, like cracking mirror under moon. A gash opened. White moths spilled, scattering into mist, each carrying story scrap. Jon shouted, "Now!" Daenerys urged Rhaegal's flame through gash. Memory moths incinerated, releasing voices which rushed back to heads below. Sailors gasped as lineage recollections returned. Creature shrieked. 1,000 whispers at once. Jon slashed again, each cut smaller, until beast unraveled into ribbons dissipating on solar wind. Chain clanged slack. Residual light rained sparkles. On deck of Vixen, Gendry's forge measured memory echo. Reading stable. Mermaid-hulled survivors from ruined slaver hulk, adrift near Maelstrom. Their eyes cleared, names restored. Rhaegal and Drogon circled, then angled north. Mission complete. Back at Ember Library, Jon dismounted in courtyard, ringed by newly planted lemon trees, gift from Dorne to symbolize unity. Sansa waited under arch, expression equal parts pride and relief. He kneeled, presented sickle. Edge dimmed. Duty done. Oblivion severed for now. She lifted necklace chain. Balance feather glowed faint. Its pulse steadied as you struck. They retired to high terrace, overlooking narrow sea. Evening painted waves rose gold. Tyrion joined with parchment. King's Landing accepted charter. Jaime abdicated regency to elected council of guildmasters. Septons and Sellsword turned senators. Debt forgiven in exchange for peace bonds. He toasted with arbor gold. Stranger things have happened. Such as that. He pointed skyward where Drogon looped. Far beyond, aurora of memory sparks faded. Daenerys approached, face softened by dusk. "You kept realm stories alive," she told Jon. She touched Balance feather. "And you, to Sansa, guard them. Dragons owe wolves once more." And now, Bran, wheeled onto terrace, eyes human tonight, spoke. "Wings at rest for now. Great wheel no longer crushes, new loom spins, but guard each strand, tapestry ever fragile." Sansa nodded, turning to Jon. "Then guardians we remain, here at Eyrie, at Wall, at hearts of people." He kissed her gently. Lemon blossoms drifted on breeze, mixing with smoke from forged chimneys below. Bells rang across Dragonstone. Shift changed for masons who would soon carve reading halls. Aviaries for balanced birds of quill and parchment. Season followed season. The Ember Library finished. Sweeping galleries lit by flickering globe lanterns. Stacks of vellum chronicling wars. Cures, myths. Balance feather hung in sun crystal above central atrium. Gentle pulses regulating heat within walls. Maesters from every realm studied there. Free folk children learned letters beneath frescoes telling tale of icy king and phoenix queen. Dothraki scribes catalogued horse lore beside Tyroshi scholars, transcribing illusions. In King's Landing, the great sept of renewed flames replaced ruined Sept Baelor, but simpler, absent opulence. In Old Town, Citadel chartered new constellation wing named for Sansa Stark, after she authored treatise on governance by consent. Jon split years between Watch and Dragonstone. Under order of the Eclipse, he trained rangers, Wildling, Southron, Summer Islander, to patrol not just wall but seas and skies. He took Ghost into Haunted Fen to teach novices how to smell lies on wind. Sansa served as High Steward of Ember Library, voice on Charter Tribunal. She corresponded across seas, weaving alliances. To small folk, she became Lady Balance. She bore 2 children, Eddard and Lyanna. who toddled among library shelves chasing moths beneath watchful ravens. In them, Balance feather glowed faintly when held. A sign future guardians waited. Arya sailed even west of Sunset Sea, sending bottles with maps of star patterns unseen in east. She returned rarely, each time bridging continents with tales that broadened world's edge. Daenerys oversaw dragon sanctuaries, breeding line of scaled beasts, attuned to both heat and cold. First hatchling, named Equinox, bore scales mottled red-white. And Bran? He lived within Weirwood Grove on Dragonstone's seaward cliff, roots of imported sapling drinking brine wind. Visitors who sought prophecy left with admonition. Protect your stories? They protect you. Years later, under Harvest Moon, a grand convocation gathered on Dragonstone's terrace. Lords and free folk, maesters and midwives, iron-born reavers turned sailors, Tyrell vintners, Dothraki children astride Westerosi ponies. They feasted on honey duck, crab pie, lemon cakes, and drank arbor blush. Jon raised horn. To balance, he proclaimed. Sansa stood, eyes bright. To memory that binds and freedom that breathes. Balance feather above flared once, blue and gold, and dimmed to steady glow. In silence that followed, distant thunder rolled, a storm far off, reminder that peace breathes in cycles. But laughter resumed, instruments struck tune, children danced. Though winter would one day return and dragons may clash anew, that night realm rested in delicate accord. Ice and fire, life and death, memory and oblivion, all held in quiet harmony by those who had dared to mend ancient ruptures. And in Godswood of Winterfell, under flicker of lanterns, a carved stone bore new words chiseled by Podrick's steady hand. Here stood wolves who harbored flame, and queens who dared to weave the rain. Where stories breathe, the night is warm, and dawn forever comes again.